Welcome everybody to the Imperial 80s. Shout out to all the Knicks fans. I'm sure you're having a wonderful week, had a great weekend.
What up, Hiram? What up, Hiram? You know it's good.
Has anybody seen or heard from Hiram since?
A little bit. A little bit.
Do like a wellness check in on him, make sure he's all right.
There was like a funny joke. Not to go too sportsy. Has anyone checked on Paul Pierce? Did you hear what Paul Pierce said? He said, "I will. When the next time the Knicks win, I will not be alive."
Oh.
So I was like, has someone done a wellness check on Paul Pierce?
Let's check in on Paul. Yeah, for sure.
We're not prepared for who Hiram will become.
Exactly.
I welcome it. I welcome it.
All right, so we're really excited to do this. This is obviously like one of the very, very big 1980s movies, a real archetype of copaganda, which will like get into various forms of it. Also a very interesting film in terms of race for the 1980s, which we'll talk about, I'm sure. And our guest today, Jared Ball, I Mix What I Like, Black Liberation Media, Earn Your Liberation, Myth and Propaganda of Black Buying Power. Thanks for joining us, Jared. It's great to have you back.
No, it's an honor. I told you when you guys invited me, I was like, this is all I do. Sit around and wait to be invited back to this series. I think this is one of my favorite series in these media spaces. I love what you guys have been doing with this. So yeah, this is dope. And it's just I mean, this is the whole series. I mean, like you've been it's just my core child. It's like my young youth and child, like my whole life. And I don't know, and salute to you both, because you're helping us understand how we deserve more credit for surviving this. Like we've overcome a lot.
We have overcome a lot. Yeah. No, it's funny, doing this. I think initially I was like, well, everybody will. And I'm like, oh yeah, there's a lot of people who are a lot younger than us who are like, what? Like somebody replied to one of the posts of like, I finally watched this movie for the first time because you guys posted this because we were talking about it. I was like, the first time? I was like, I probably saw this movie 30 times between like, when it came out in like 93.
I've seen this movie more times than I can count. This one in particular. I've seen this movie so many. I mean, I've watched it probably twice in the last like year and a half. Like it just happens. You know what I'm saying? It comes on and you watch it.
Yeah. And these movies, I mean, honestly, they meant a lot. Like they meant I was even conscious of it as a teenager, how important Eddie Murphy was to my concept of cool and blackness and manhood. And so like this was, and we couldn't wait. And again, I know we'll probably get, but I'm also of a certain age where as a younger kid, I grew up watching him on Saturday Night Live. So like I've like Eddie, me and Eddie, like he's been a constant as for my entire life. So when I saw him starting to move into these movies, I was like, this is the best thing ever. This is so anyway, it is weird to hear people that would have been like, I didn't know Eddie, like my kids, they're like, Eddie Murphy did movies, like Dr. Dolittle used to do movies, and Ice Cube didn't just do kindergarten kids movies, like that kind of thing. And it's like, no, these people once upon a time they did other shit. Anyway,
I watched, I'll bring it up a few times. I didn't rewatch it for this, but there is like this recent Netflix documentary with Eddie Murphy. I think it's on Netflix because he has like a whole deal with Netflix, but documentary on him. And like, it's very interesting because he participated. I mean, it's not really a documentary, right? It's like one of these like self kind of vanity projects, I guess you would call it to some extent. But it's easy to forget for some of us that he has had like a lot of real like highs and lows to his career, and he's had points because he was so huge in the 80s, right? Like it was such a massive star. And I think we can, move from that into like kind of our memories of that. But then he has he has this whole period of a kind of lull until the Nutty Professor, right? And then he has another big, 10-year stretch or so. And then he basically disappears again, right? And he talks about all of that, and some of it is like industry stuff. Some of it is kind of his own, I think, personality and wanting to, being so famous and wanting to just be kind of reclusive from that and all of that. But yeah, it's interesting because I think depending on when you were, born or coming of age, your memory of him might be totally different. Where for us, it was like he was probably, I mean, and this is a debate, like, is he the biggest star of the 80s? He's one of, like a 5, I think, that you could kind of put up there. But
certainly of black stars, right? I mean, is there anybody? Yeah, and then I would be one. Like, who would be in that top 5 in the 80s? Yeah, and go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing is, he makes the transition. I mean, if Sidney Poitier is the first black leading man, he's actually the second Eddie. You would not have Denzel without Eddie, because this movie, I mean, we'll get into it. This movie made $316 million and was a $13 million budget film. I mean, huge. And that's the calendar year. So we're not even talking about sequels, the amount of money that it made after. I mean, he proved that a certain type of blackness could be bankable to the Hollywood system, right? And we'll get into that, what that means, which I don't think it means very good things for us personally. But like, but yeah, like he is the transitional star, because then from him, Denzel becomes possible, because Denzel doesn't leave St. Elsewhere, I think, until like towards the late 80s. He doesn't do Cry Freedom until 87. And then you get Glory, because remember, and Denzel's still pretty much supporting actor up until really 90. Denzel's really more of a 90s star. He gets his start in the late 80s.
What's the movie that he did where he plays the son of the white man in the 80s? That's the first movie I remember seeing him in.
Denzel?
Even I think before. Yeah, it's like it's you'll know the actor too. It was a famous white
I know what you're talking about.
And and I don't remember he's supposed to actually be mixed, but he is supposed to be the son of this white man. And I remember that was my introduction to Denzel. And I think this for me was even before I was aware that he was on television, because I didn't watch St. Elsewhere when it was actually on television.
Yeah, because he go ahead.
Carbon Copy is the name.
That's it.
Yeah, Carbon Copy.
What year is that?
What's the name of it?
81.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's doing smaller movies.
I gotta look that up. Yeah. Anyway, George Segal. That's it. That was him. Yeah.
Yeah, he's doing smaller movies, but he doesn't get that Cry Freedom nom not until like 87. So he's like kind of building up his career. So around 87, then remember Glory, he's still a supporting actor in Glory. So by 90, he becomes a leading man. So I say all this to say, and then even like Whoopi Goldberg's career, she gets, I mean, what year is Jumping Jack Flash? Jumping Jack Flash is
87, I want to say.
Yeah, Jumping Jack Flash is literally just this 86. It's the Beverly Hills Cop formula for a black woman. Mm-hmm. They just, it's like they what Eddie does, they just type, they try to kind of manufacture it around and then in different areas.
He makes the argument that before him, there could only be one. Right. So this is one of the things he says in this documentary type thing, is that he says that, you had Poitier and then you had Richard Gere, and then, Cosby's kind of in there. Right. But he's basically like, you could only have one black star. And his argument is basically because of his acting range, he opened up all of these different avenues for black folks in different types of leading roles in Hollywood, basically. Which is an interesting case. I mean, I think that I don't know how much I want to put that just to Eddie Murphy versus like what the country was willing to do, what the studios and the country were willing to do and watch and all that kind of stuff in the 80s. But he certainly, his talent and his ability to like play and act in these different registers, I think definitely opened up a lot of space. And then he becomes a director and a producer himself, which even on this one, his production company is a part of this, which is really interesting. Because this is only like his third major movie, really, and his first real leading movie.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we can get into like early memories of this movie. So yeah, I mean, kind of similar to Jared, like, or JB, Jab. We always have this moment, fix this moment to similar to Jab. Like, I think growing up in my home, black home, I was 4 when this movie came out, but Eddie being a thing was just like a known, especially in New York too. Like my mother used to kind of go out in that little, like in that little crew. She used to go to the comedy shows. Eddie would be at some of them. Right. If you see some of the old, remember his uncle, a kind of known in like the comedy circuits as Uncle Ray Murphy and all that type of stuff. Right. My mother was familiar with all this stuff. So like a lot of these like stalwarts of like the comedy stuff, she used to go to that stuff. So them being figures, not just people in movies or TV, were just a part of my life. And there's like this, at that time, what is Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, Eddie Murphy, Magic Johnson, Michael, there is this like crew of folks, right, that are just in there. And Eddie was one of them. And this movie, I remember, this was one of the ones that my mother had no problem with me watching, right, pretty early on. Like, I think this in Trading Places, she didn't really want me to watch 48 Hours. My parents were like, but I still watched it anyway, right? It was a little too much. But this was one that she was like, no, you can watch this. And I remember I ate this movie up. Like I ate it up. I loved it. The sequel to, I used to watch 1 and 2 all the time. If it came on, I'd be like, oh yeah, this is my shit. Let me go watch this. Boom, 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 boom. And then when I became an actor, I will say this movie, and this is where it gets really kind of pernicious. This movie became a film that I watched on how to be what I felt was like an acceptable leading person in a movie, because I felt that like Eddie had the good like evenness of just being himself, kind of a flow state acting, right, where he could just kind of do something. And then when he had to like add a little bit of like flavor, he knew how to snap it, whether he was doing the, hey man, banana in the tailpipe, which is still fucking hilarious to me. I'm sorry, that banana in the tailpipe line is still absolutely hilarious. And we'll get to it. Or, doing the other little characters. Some of them are a little cringy. We'll talk about that too, right? But that ability to kind of switch, but then also be even, right? He wasn't like a big buffoon, right? He just in his even moments, in his regular moments, he knew how to play back and forth. And then also, and we'll talk about this, the ability to assert authority over white people at moments through like a kind of like deception or like a trickery, right? And it's kind of akin to this, I think, old wish of people who are in the oppressed classes that every now and then we can trick, we have the ability to trick the bourgeoisie or the ones who work for them, right? It's like this myth. It's this myth, I think, that comes out of old European literature, right? That, the smart ones are really the people who don't have it, right? Which is true. I'll go with that. But, we somehow have some power over them every now and then. And I feel like it's a false, I've always experienced it as like a false notion that we have some kind of like existent power over the bourgeoisie and those who work for them. So yeah, for like years, this movie became that kind of thing. And I never really thought about it from a kind of, a system level. I will say when my film studies kind of began to get up, I read stuff on people like Manthia Diawara, his great essay on Black spectatorship, and other people, and they were talking about Eddie. I started like analyzing how Eddie situated himself in movies, and we'll talk about that pretty much throughout. And it became a film that I began to study, actually, in many ways, as I began to study Eddie, what that shit meant, I had to reconcile with some things, especially when I got out of the kind of formal, like large acting business. This became a movie that I began to study in a multitude of ways, and we can talk about it. I've even taught it a couple of times with my students on various levels. But yeah, I mean, it's been with me, will stay with me, and like, you know, it's an interesting thing, and I'm looking forward to digging into it.
I should have asked
go
this
ahead, Jared.
before we did the show. It just occurred to me. I should have asked you for some of that literature on Eddie, because I didn't put in too much effort, but I did look for some reviews of this film, and other than some of the fluff and like New York Times stuff, like I didn't find any like critical, deep thinking stuff on it. Again, I didn't put in that much effort, but but anyway, so I'd be interested if you can work in any more thoughts from that. I look forward to that. Yeah.
So what about you, Jared? What's your earliest memories of this film?
Yeah, I was trying to, I don't trust my memory on this. But so I think it may have been the second film when I was actually working at a movie theater. Because I have memories of, because Chris Rock is in the second one, right? That's where he makes a cameo. He's in the third one, where he isn't he like playing.
He might have a cameo.
Doesn't he do like a cameo where he's like parking cars in the second one? That's the one I think. Yeah, that's the one.
I'm confusing.
When he has the big truck, when he has the big truck, and he's like, "You want me to park this?" Yeah,
because he also has a cameo in Boomerang that I remember also that I conflate sometimes. So anyway, I was trying to, but so some of my memories are overlap. There's like I think a confused blend of, as I said, growing up watching Eddie, being super excited that he started his movie career. I had a similar thing where my mother was like, I don't really want you to see 48 Hours. And then she was like, but then I remember her being intrigued because she was a fan, or she at least knew of the career of Nick Nolte. So she was like, Nick Nolte? You know, she didn't know anything about Eddie Murphy. So she was like, Nick Nolte? She was like, what kind of odd combination? She was like, what the hell is going on? I don't think I want you to, it was that kind of thing. So then, but when this movie came out, shout out Roberto, I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, I'm not. I don't remember. I think I'm blending stuff with the second movie, me working in the theater. So I don't actually remember the first time I saw this movie. I just don't remember not having ever seen it. And then I know I've seen it so many times. Like watching it just again for today, I was surprised at how much I remembered. I mean, some of the lines, I was like, oh, this is about to happen. Oh, I remember. Oh, and I forgot, all the cameos. I was like, yeah, I remember. Okay. And oddly, why were so many of the cameos like over performative gay characters? Like, what was that all about? I was like, wait, what is happening here? Like, what is... Anyway, I was just like, because Damon Wayans, I was like, and Bronson Pinchot, and I was like, what? Anyway, so I thought that was so, but yeah, and but then I just, I know we're going to get into some of it just in the rewatch. I'm thinking more about what I saw in this more recent watch, and thinking about all the things I would have never really consciously at least picked up on, particularly as a youngster watching this film. And again, why I'm impressed that the three of us and others of similar ages made it this far as decent human beings. Because I feel like, like these films do not really encourage you to have a thoughtful outlook on the world. You know what I'm saying?
Not at all.
And they, to your point, Mtume, I think both of you made it already. It's a little bit, I think, hard to explain. Like when some of my students at their age, I think it's still a little bit hard for them to conceive of how big singular media drops like this could be at the time. Like there's so much happening now and so much going on now. And especially if you were young and Black, or probably or anyone not just sort of milquetoast, Republican white, was looking at these films is like, this is everything. Like Eddie was everything. And I honestly don't even remember having debates like you hear about today over who your favorite, what, like Eddie was an understood, undisputed, like immediate legendary status. I don't remember having arguments about people the way we have about some celebrities today, or that I've had over my life, you know, about other people, like nah, so and so has been nah. And someone put it in the chat too, you know, the Delirious and Raw performances, comedic, you know, have to be factored in terms of what Eddie meant as this. So yeah, anyway, I'll stop there. Just
no, that's really important. And I think it's like I was trying to place the things in Eddie's career that come before this. And I mean, we might be jumping ahead a little bit, but that's fine. I mean, so we've done Trading Places, 48 hours, right? It's 48 hours and then Trading Places, but then it's Delirious, right? That comes before Raw, and that one's comes out, I think, the year before this comes out, which is also sort of referenced in the movie when he passes those two guys on the streets in the big like leather outfits or whatever. But
oh no, I thought that's right.
Yeah, I mean, it's
even
sort of
watching
it
again.
like
I thought it was
too,
Michael. That's what I thought. But you're right. No, you're right.
It's a double joke. Right. It's a double joke.
Yeah.
But but anyway, yeah, I'm similar in terms of I don't remember a specific time that I saw it because I didn't go see it in the theaters, but also just because I was too young at the time. But also there was no point in which I was like watching movies in which my parents were not really okay with me seeing it, which is very funny. I mean, it does also speak to like how, which we've seen throughout, this is what, 43rd episode or whatever of this show, like how ultra violent everything is in the 80s, that this is like kind of just like it's like, it's fine, you know, it's okay. I mean,
execution style murder, you know, it's fine.
Yeah.
Except this time I'm watching it, I was like, oh shit, they got Judge Reinhold killing people.
Yeah.
I was like not my Fast Times at Ridgemont High Judge Reinhold, like even in the movie, and I know it's part of the copaganda, like innocent, goofy Judge Reinhold is like, you know, murking cat. Like I'm like, whoa. So yeah. That was wild. I said, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I watched this so many times, and I think the point you made there, Jared, I think is really important in terms of like understanding. It's probably something we haven't talked about enough with regard to the 80s, is that like these movies, there's no comparison between the way a big movie came out in the 80s and the kind of cultural impact that it had, and like the way a movie, like even a huge movie that comes out now. I was trying to even think, I mean, like maybe something like Black Panther, but like that with a vehicle, like, I mean, if Chadwick Boseman didn't die, you know, rest in peace, he had, I don't know, you know, he's an attempt to approximate, you know, I think some kind of star status that's similar. He certainly does a lot of films, but like these movies, like each one of them was a huge thing. And especially growing up, you know, getting older in the 90s, like going through my teenage years and stuff like that, like we've talked about it, but you know, HBO or Comedy Central, like these channels that would just play movies basically from the 80s primarily, you know, these things would just be on all the time. And so like that's why it's impossible to really say how many times I watched it, because my friends and I would just be playing video games or just be, you know, whatever. And like it would just be on, you know, and this was one of those movies, all of them really were movies that, like every Eddie Murphy movie, honestly, you know, would be just something that we would just have on, and you didn't even have to actively watch it, but like, you know, then the scene would come on that you liked and you'd be like, oh, hey, this is the part or whatever, or, you know. And so it's very different nowadays because there's such an overload of content, and then most of it is like very poorly produced, cheaply made, poorly acted a lot of times, like put together very quickly very often, and it just doesn't have the same it, you know, it doesn't, even a big blockbuster nowadays, like, doesn't have the same kind of staying power or effects in such a way that,
trying to think, who's even a star like that today? I don't like, who would be?
No.
Like, I know there are more popular Black actors now than then, but I am off the top. I was trying to think who would be the, because again, there was a stardom attached to Eddie, and then maybe I'm projecting, but there was this, again, it was instructional. It was manhood. It was coolness. It was Blackness. It was a time when there wasn't that many options in pop culture for learning indirectly in the way you can today about all those things. So somebody said Tyler Perry in the chat. I was like, oh Lord. But yeah, that's that. I don't. So yeah. I don't know if there could be an equivalent today. Yeah.
It's kind of like if you combined Kevin Hart and Denzel and like put them into like one star, and they were the star. So there wasn't like a competition of 5 or 6 like leading Black men that could be in roles. I mean, like, this was so prevalent that I remember with Samuel L. Jackson, right, that there was this whole period of like, can he be a leading man, right? And I think he did like Great White Hype or something like that, and it failed or whatever, you know. And it was like this was a whole thing of like this, there could only be one, right? Like, it was so hard for like Hollywood just would have like one person they would put their I don't know, you could probably talk to it too, maybe more than me.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of writing on this that the movie star, you could say the movie star in the way we know it is functionally dead. The way we knew it when we were young. Because, and I think Dre Without said it, it's more about the IPs than it is about this, is about it. I mean, Chadwick, who I knew personally, rest in peace, you can't compare him to really any of those actors. You can't compare Michael B either. Michael B is attached to franchises and IPs, right? This is the thing. The opposite happened. They built IPs around these people, right? Indiana Jones partly wouldn't have been possible if you weren't able to, you know, if Harrison had already not been able to do this thing and you were creating him. And the thing about Harrison Ford wasn't able to kind of like just make movies out of anything. Think about take away Indiana Jones. You got to think about Witness, which we should do. You got to think about movies like that. Those are the things that prove their star. It's not the big franchise movie, is the stuff around it that they were able to do and they're able to kind of lift. It doesn't exist. And I'm gonna say Hollywood didn't want that to exist. It's too much power, right? And it's too much, because someone brought up Will Smith. I do agree Will Smith is one of the last, but look what happened when Will Smith tanked. He became toxic. Right at a certain point, when he started having bombs, it was terrible for them, right? And they were saying, this person, we can't put any money into them because we're just afraid it's all going to tank. So the way it exists is functionally not the same. The idea of IPs, franchises, the multi kind of lateral marketing deals that were all developed, it goes up and it changes. And there's a lot of people who have written about this. I mean, and it's the change in finance capital, how capital works, entertainment, mass media, the expectations on how these things go, and how they make money, how they want to make money within it is also functionally a bit different. But yeah, the movie star, I mean, we'll get into it in a minute, but like the other thing I think people have to appreciate about this is like where we were changing as Black folk from the 70s to the 60s in our political fight. And then 80s, the kind of real big beginning of representation. Because you have to also remember, this is also the same year the Cosby Show premiered. This is the same year, right? The push for a Reagan era, remember, Reagan era appreciated Black star became the push for so many, right? So there's also a political push here. Right. This becomes, sadly, I hate to say it, a big part of our politics. Right. Jesse. Right. You know, there's like, was it the same 84? Right. Like, I mean, we have to like appreciate that this becomes a big part of our politics in a very conservative time in a very conservative time. Jay.
Just one thing I want to say too, to something you mentioned, Jared, like, I'll just say even white conservatives loved Eddie Murphy. Like I know, because I grew up around enough of them that like that there was no problem. Like there was no, and I mean we could talk about that. I mean, there's definitely conservative politics within this film in certain ways, but
I think this film helps make that point, actually. Why that would be
it didn't bother them at all, like it wasn't, threatening.
No, because one of the things, and this is me going into some of the memories that I had growing up and why Eddie was important to me personally, was that one of the most, I don't know if I've ever, one of the few times that I ever think of the tragic mulatto being a real experience for me is when I've disappointed white folks who were wanting in me the legitimate Black experience that I could not provide. And there was something in their disappointment at my failure to be the Blackness that they wanted that enraged to this day. Like, I'm angry even just recalling this now. And so I remember both trying to in a way, maybe not consciously saying it this way, study Eddie, and then seeing why white folks loved him. Because he gave them that authentic Blackness that was unthreatening, uncritical of their world, and the way even Mtume, you were describing him code switching in this film a little bit, is I think essential to that whole thing. And so so Jay, I get it. I mean, I'm not at all surprised. Conservative, liberal, whatever, that there would have, that one of the reasons why he was so successful was he was able to give that kind of performance that they need. Anyway.
And I think we'll get into, I know Mtume, you should probably do the, like, some of the background of the people, but one thing I'll just say is, like, one way that the conservatism of this movie really shows up is in the portrayal of cities, right? And like the Detroit versus Beverly Hills, like, dichotomy within the film, I think is deeply, reactionary, honestly. But yeah.
So we'll get to the Detroit thing in a minute. That's always, Detroit be getting it in the 80s, man. They just be giving it to Detroit so negatively. But you know what it is? It is the idea of the failed industrial city, right? Failed industrial. Then to juxtapose that, they don't really get into the industrial element of Detroit, but I think everyone knows that as like the Motor City. So right, it's like the failure of the old Americana, and then you directly juxtapose it with like literally the highest level of opulence in Beverly Hills, and you're uncritical about it at all. There is not a critique of that at all. Rather than actually, you need these people in your life to kind of make you more down to earth. Woo, that's deep as fuck, right? So this film started in 1977. Actually, it's like a 7 to 8 year gestation. Don Simpson, who was a Paramount executive, and I'll get into Simpson and Bruckheimer in a little bit. He said he had this idea, about a police officer from East LA first, who gets transferred to Beverly Hills. That was like his initial idea. And, I like read a few things from Simpson and Bruckheimer about it. And there's definitely this element where I think they really love cops as these like rich guys. They like really were into them. And I think they kind of wanted to do like a slight love letter to them, where he could but I think he also is into this fish out of water idea, which I also think directly comes from like Columbo, which I want to bring that in. I think there's a Columbo thing that's like an elevation of it here. And we'll get to it. So they got it like many different screenwriters. Someone like wrote this script, and it was called like Beverly Drive. The guy was from Pittsburgh in one version. All types of shit was happening, right? And then eventually Sylvester Stallone becomes the person that they attach to it. there's another. The timeline's a little weird. There's also talks that Mickey Rourke was also offered the role and given some money. I don't know if that was before or after. There was also a deal that Scorsese was going to maybe do it for a while. Cronenberg got offered to direct it. Like, there's like so many. Like, it was in these, like, it's real Hollywood shit where like this person's attached for a week, you know, and then like they get unattached and so forth and so on. So then Stallone was gonna play Foley, right? But he basically wanted to remove like all of the humor and just make it like a fucking action movie. Eventually, he basically wanted to make what he eventually did with Cobra. Really, if you think about it, he basically wanted to make Cobra in many ways. Yeah, like there's like so many iterations. I mean, like there's like I don't really want to get into it unless anybody, either you or Jab, want to jump into it. But there's like this long back and forth between Bruckheimer, Simpson, and Stallone about why it failed and so forth and so on. There is a line though from Stallone that's hilarious. He said in Stallone's script for Beverly Hills Cop would have looked like the opening scene from Saving Private Ryan on the beaches of Normandy. Believe it or not, the finale was me in stolen Lamborghini playing chicken with an oncoming freight train being driven by the ultra slimy bad guy. And I'm like, what the fuck movie is this?
Yeah, I saw that somewhere. I said, damn. And at one point, Stallone said something like he was gonna the name, he had changed the name from Foley to some Italian name, like
Folighetti or something. Folighetti.
Yeah. I mean,
it's so.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, no, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, what's interesting is if you ask any AI for like a summary of this film, it pulls up all this slop that's not true. And I think it's because there were so many variations of the script and like how things were supposed to go within the film. But it will literally, like, usually if you do that on like DeepSeek or whatever, it'll give you kind of like a rough synopsis of the scenes. They're totally wrong if you ask like AI. It has like stuff that just doesn't happen in the movie, right? It's just like in there. So anyway.
No, that's the one thing I noted from the rundown that you summarized there when I was trying to look into it a little bit. The first thought I had was that of course this was not initially developed as a vehicle for Eddie. This was something that they could plug him into. And that's sort of the point that we were getting at. Like, what does it really mean when you could, and again, as I'm thinking about this as a kid, I'm projecting all of these important things about identity. And I'm like, but they're just plugging and playing. And he could have been just as easily Stallone. And that's the way I'm like, first of all, Saving Private Ryan hadn't even been made yet. So you're thinking back after having seen that film that this is what you were going to do. I'm like, how did like what? Yeah. Anyway, it's so
Stallone too, man. It's such a Stallone because you can believe him, but also like not believe him. Because he always wants to do it. Well, I actually had the idea before everybody else did. I was just never able to do it. It's everybody else hamstrung me, right? And you know, yeah. Because even he did this thing where he I saw in an interview where like they asked him, he was like, yeah, it's good, it's great, I'm really happy for Eddie, but there is that kind of air to him that like, but if they let me do that shit, they don't know what they really could have had, right? Maybe that I had $616 million. Right, you know, exactly. he has that air to him. So a little on Simpson and Bruckheimer. So Jerry Bruckheimer, it's interesting as I think people and Don Simpson are like, they're like Hollywood legend producing legends, but this is actually the beginning of their film careers. Like this is the film they do right before this is Flashdance, actually. And the success of Flashdance is the reason why they're able to get this done, right? Bruckheimer started in advertising, which is very, very prominent, a prominent move over. He transfers right over from advertising and goes into film. Right. Him and Simpson had already been working. And it's funny, when I tried to find more on Simpson, I didn't really have the time. They said he worked in exploitation films, which I find very interesting because when I look at his credits, they're not listed, the exploitation films that he did. So I think he's been very good at able to kind of kind of rub away that part of his career, right? So he's working in exploitation films. But then he started working for Paramount, being a producer. They go into Paramount and they start, getting projects together. And this is Bruckheimer has a few other projects he's attached to before Flash. He has like 2, but this is like the beginning. The thing to think about their careers, though, is like the Beverly Hills Cop formula is like a major thing because they do Top Gun after this. This, if you look at we all know who these guys are. Bruckheimer, just do a quick Wikipedia search of their careers, and they're about as Imperial, Hollywood as it gets, right? And for them to be the kind of makers of this film, I just think is, really, really poignant. Another person to kind of talk about is Martin Brest, who's the director of this film, who is not a name that many people know, but he has an interesting career. He did a couple of like smaller films in the 70s. He then was fired from War Games early on in it. And when we get to War Games, we could talk about that. But he was fired. He didn't get a chance to direct it, and he thought his career was over. Bruckheimer and Simpson knew him, and they decided to hire him, probably partly because they knew he wouldn't be a big price tag. They were spending money on a whole lot of other things. They said they liked him. They wanted to kind of give him a shot, and they could make it happen. And I think because Bruckheimer and Simpson, they weren't like, they wanted a certain amount of control. Someone like Brest could really work for them, right? Brest has like a weird career. His other probably most known movie is fucking Son of a Woman. He did the Al Pacino, the hoo-ah, right? That movie is another film that
Oscar-worthy performance, by the way.
I'm in the dark here, right? That shit is hilarious. Too bad when we get to Imperial 90s, actually, we'll have to do that one. Woo, that's a whopper of a movie when it comes to shit from the 90s. Another thing about Bruckheimer is that he's from Detroit, and the whole Mumford shirt, that's Bruckheimer's school, right? So that's actually a nod to Bruckheimer that they threw in there. There's some other things that maybe I could say when
and just to be clear, that's the shirt Eddie's wearing. I just want some folks to remember that he's wearing it almost throughout a lot of the beginning, at least.
Yeah, you forgot throughout the beginning, and then when he first gets to Beverly Hills, I think early in the movie he has it. It's like Mumford, and it's funny because I never knew that until a couple of years ago that was the case. So it's like a nod to him. I guess one other thing to say is about the casting of Eddie. So when Stallone pulled out, right, they were kind of in a bit of a mess. They went to Eddie literally and said, we need 48 hours, not ironically, to kind of basically like sign on to this. And he did. He said, this the only thing is you got to bring the funny back, right? Which they did. But Martin Brest, and I saw this in an interview, he said the other thing he said is, well, the other thing that we probably are going to have to do is give Eddie a lot of leeway to basically like do stuff. Because one of the first times I ever taught this film was actually in an improv and cinema class, because he does. I mean, the thing of Eddie improvising around the lines is largely true in this. But I think there's a psychology that we have to think about that, where Eddie could essentially improvise the stuff to make it funny, but also stay on track to the aims of the movie, which like is the complicated thing to me about Eddie, because he knew how to give them what they wanted, right? So it's like you can't separate Eddie's pleasing and wanting to be a megastar from the aims of the movie. Like they're kind of, he can't be separated from this, is what I want to say to people, right? These aims of the movie of a black person being acceptable to whites in law enforcement, from a certain class, was also part of Eddie's aims, and he knew how to deliver that. So they knew, they're like, yeah, he'll be the right person. And it sounds like whenever they talk about it, they talk about like it was a dream creation. Everyone says we were all on the same page. It was a great thing, amazing. Like they all gush at the creation of this movie. The others they don't gush as much about. Eddie doesn't really like the second one. Actually, he talks about that a little bit, but there's a thing to think about it with the movie that, like, this was all a project from multitudes of an acceptance of a certain kind of America that I think all these people had a really big interest in.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'll just say, like, Bruckheimer is probably one of my greatest contradictions. Like, I just love so many Jerry Bruckheimer films, and they're all terrible. Like, they're all just absolute Imperial slop, right? But like,
even seeing the name show up, to your point, like it was like being at home again. Like, I feel you, like his movies, like they're shit, but I see Jerry Bruckheimer's like, oh, this is about to be good. This is my shit. It's like, oh,
guns.
It's like, how, like, again, how did we make it? How did we make it here?
Yeah, like him and Michael Bay were like in a category of their own, or like this, like, you just knew it was going to be some crazy action film. And another series that very much comes out of like the world of this movie and is Bruckheimer is the Bad Boys films too, right? And then Will Smith kind of, and Martin Lawrence obviously take on this. But anyway, yeah. So whatever. Like, the only other thing I want to mention up front is Harold Faltermeyer. Axel F, the score is just so good. I mean, it's like peak synth. Like, I mean, it's so 80s, right? Like, and as soon as you hear it, it immediately takes you to this film. And it's one of the very rare, like, film, like, the song is actually called Axel F, right? And that a song would be named after a star or a character in a film, and then somehow transport into other movies that have nothing to do with Beverly Hills Cop, right? Like, my kids are watching like Monsters versus Aliens or whatever, and the aliens come down and like they start playing this score, right, to speak to the aliens.
Oh,
like,
wow.
It has a whole, life of its own outside of this movie. And I need to go look at this, because the song that it reminds me the most of is the Herbie Hancock
Rocket.
Yeah, Rocket. And I was trying to think, I think Rocket was before this, and so Faltermeyer might be cribbing a little bit from
it's
from
1
that,
year
but
before. It's 83.
yeah
And that do you bow. Those are all signature sounds that I remember from the 80s. And the theme song you're talking about, I noted it in the rewatch again. It's played a lot in the movie. I mean, every other scene. Dun, 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 dun. So it's like by the time you walk out of the theater, you probably like it was already. But I also remember even being conscious of this as a kid growing up at the time. I didn't like a lot of that music. I didn't like a lot of that. I didn't like that synthesizer sound. I didn't like, so when you even the soundtrack, the Patti LaBelle song, you hear like a great singer, but that song is trash. I didn't like it then. I didn't like it now. I don't like that sound. That's why I love the boom bap sound in hip hop, because that real drum, I want that. That's what in go-go music, like there was the real seriously, like I've never liked the keyboard sound in production. I always prefer the sample based of real music, or just real music, so that always, but to your point, that was a hit. And I don't know if I liked it because it was catchy, or if it was actually, I thought it was good, but we heard it a lot in that movie though. Yeah,
it has distinct like rhythms and melody that you can always remember. I mean, that's like the big thing about the scores of that era, right?
And you know who else where I saw it is in Family Guy. I kept hearing there's a part where he's making fun of it. He's like he's doing it.
And I'll just say, like, appreciate the super chat, and thank you, Trey, also. But I just say with this, that's interesting, and we probably have to do Fletch, even though both Mtume and I hate Chevy Chase, with to varying degrees.
And I'll throw in a third hate just since I'm here. I don't like him either. So,
but I just wanted to bring that up as we were talking about this, because Faltermeyer also produced the score from Fletch, and those are similar. And so it's interesting that you have this, this like comedic cop, kind of film with a Faltermeyer score a couple years apart. I think that probably both SNL guys probably pulled some of the stuff together. But yeah.
And they tried to reboot Fletch. Didn't they try to do a reboot of
Fletch? They did Fletch Lives. Like, there is a sequel, and then they did try to do like a TV show with it or something like that. Yeah.
They recently did. I haven't seen it yet, but there's actually a new-ish Beverly Hills Cop film too, like Axel, which I didn't watch, which came out in the last like 3 or 4 years, I think.
And they were supposed to do a TV show with someone who played Axel Foley's son. I think it had a pilot, but it didn't go. Yeah, it didn't go anywhere. Yeah,
it was a That's TV right. movie. Yeah.
I did see what John Hamm did Fletch. I did see that. I saw that reboot. I don't remember it, but I know I saw it.
It does try so hard.
I can't stand when John Hamm does comedy stuff. Like he's
not funny.
No,
he's not funny. So yeah, I think we can start getting into the film, because then I think when we get to the film, when we get to like certain people who come in or certain moments, we can kind of backtrack to certain like themes, because there's some interesting little tidbits. So the opening of the film is this very, very typical thing you see in 80s movies. But I think you see it in 70s movies too, right? You get, the heat is on montage, but you get these images of Detroit as this like destitute place, mostly black folk. And if they're white, they're about as destitute as you can get, right? The kind of destroyed city, right? Absolutely decrepit. The buildings are destroyed. The people are smoking, doing drugs, and walking around slovenly and all this type of stuff. And they're mostly long shots, or mostly super wide, or they're like what we call like a telephoto shot, where you're shooting from a big distance, but you're kind of zoomed up, so everything is kind of in, but you still feel like you're distant because everything else is kind of blurred out. You're kind of zoomed in on the person, so you get this distance. You're like this distant observer from poverty, right? And you see this in a lot of movies in the 80s. It's actually very prevalent. And this started, I think, a little bit in the 70s as well, but it's really, really prevalent. And it's this like oogling at the poor, right? But it's so funny to me because it's not like they're doing it with like a sad music. They're doing it with the heat is on. You're like this fucking like really high energy song as I'm watching like Destroyed Detroit. And I was talking to a homie of mine who's from Detroit, and he said that shit used to piss them off. They hated that shit. Like they always couldn't stand how Detroit was depicted. Not that it wasn't a city that was hard hit, but it's just this idea that like you're just gonna oogle at Detroit as this symbol of like poverty, and not really explain it, not really get into it. And he said he's always like just been totally pissed off by it. So yeah, that's like the opening sequence. This film does love its montages over music. I think there's about 3 of them, right? Well, you have 2 montages and 1 car chase scene over a big music, piece. But yeah, I don't know if anybody wants to add on to like the opening, music montage.
I did want to ask you, because I made a note here that if it, to what extent it's relevant, but that it said, I didn't notice before that Eddie Murphy produced it. Or his production company. Is that relevant beyond just, I don't know.
It is. Here's how it's relevant. So when he was approached to doing this, I did read this, is that was part of the thing to convince him to make it happen, right? Is that we'll also give you a producing credit, right? And help launch your production company. Because Eddie at the time was getting lots of offers, but he was turning a lot of things down. He was being very, 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 very calculated in what he accepted, what he didn't accept, so forth and so on. I mean, that's where like the kind of like the whole Ghostbusters things happened, which he regrets not taking. He said he was being highly selective at that moment, right? So that was part of
the brother in Ghostbusters.
He'd have been an Ernie Hudson. Yeah. He was offered it. The only reason why he said he didn't take it, which he regrets it, is because he at that point he wanted a star role, right? It's the only reason. But he says he regrets it. He said him and Bill being able to improv for like 2 hours for him would have been like a big thing. He said he deeply regrets it, but also he's happy for Ernie Hudson, whatever. But we'll get into that later. It'd have been a whole different movie, which I'm not here to sing the praises of Ghostbusters as much as like that's the reason why he did it. But this, that was part of the way to kind of get him to do it and help launch, you know, because there was this, they were super interested, all of it. They said, Eddie's going to be the guy. Eddie's the guy that's going to launch, you know, this 80s Hollywood is going to be the multiracial version, right? He's going to launch it, right? And we have to figure out this way. Eddie, so you see Jerry Bruckheimer, Eddie Murphy Productions. It becomes this like, yeah, we shall overcome. You know, like we're all going together.
What's the music playing as he's driving into Beverly Hills the first time? What montage is what song is that?
That's one of the Patti LaBelle's. That's one of the Patti LaBelle tracks.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So just about Detroit quickly. Yeah, I mean, it's very brief, right? But you do get all of these images of Black poverty. I mean, this is one of the things I think is just really conservative about the politics of the film too, right? Is it's like this idea feeds into this very long standing kind of conservative project of like these Black run like liberal cities basically like just to decay, like they don't know how to you know, and so it's a whole, like it goes into even the kind of colonial logics, right, of like Black people are not capable of, you know, building and maintaining their own like, you know, democracy and nice society and all of this kind of stuff. And I obviously it doesn't need to say any of that, right? It just sort of portrays it by images. And then you do get, when you get the Detroit Police Department in it, you know, it's clearly a Black run basically institution in comparison to the Beverly Hills Police Department, which we'll get to too, and how those two are different, right? But yeah, I mean, I think that it just contributes to this like also white fear of cities, right? Like every time you go into it, it's just going to be like, you know, poor people who might stick you up or something like that, you know. And it also, I mean, the visuals remind me a lot of still like North Philly even to this day, right? So there's a lot of, and Baltimore too to some extent.
Baltimore,
right?
I was
like
going to say, absolutely,
yeah. Like these cities that have just been decimated by deindustrialization and, you know, the loss of like working class jobs basically for largely Black working class communities.
And thank God for no, I'm sorry.
No, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say something ridiculous about thanking God for Donald Trump and the military cleaning up DC. Otherwise, DC would look just as bad. But thankfully, between gentrification and the Trump administration, DC doesn't look as bad as Baltimore and Detroit. But I think, you know, and we were talking off air briefly, and I think when you all raised this question that I had not thought of the Obama effect that Suit Jali the
Cosby effect, right? Or was it Obama?
Well, it was the Cosby effect. I'm conflating yes, it was the Cosby effect that Obama perfected, that Suit Jali, the media studies scholar that I'm borrowing from, isolate. And I think but when you raise it, I'm a little bit upset at myself for not thinking of this, to be perfectly honest, because I think it works, because very quickly, as you point out, Detroit is only there to situate how bad it is vis-a-vis where he's going. And then I do think to unconsciously do what you all are saying in terms of the liberal Black run city and the devolution that represents, but also showing that here's Eddie Murphy, a very Black, authentically Black. There's nobody who could doubt any of that, but his whole social group is white. So to the point of the Cosby effect, that's the point that Jali is making, that this is the presentation of a version of Blackness that white audiences and white middle America and middle class America will find acceptable. It's, in a way, it tricked young people like me, because I know I wasn't alone in this, in presenting this Cosby affected Blackness as aspirational. They're telling the young Black kid, this is who you need to be, and this is the realest of the real. And then even the only, like, you see him in, so again, he's this authentically black person, but he's divorced. There is no black community that he's coming from. There's no family. His only black engagement is the hostile relationship he has with the black, his police chief, who, you know, again, is only there to be juxtaposed against the perfectly run, good, white, by the book, and will only lie when it's in service of the greater good white cops. So yeah, I mean, it's all done very quickly. So in terms of what a film can do, I think it's kind of impressive. It's like you get some music, it's the synthesizer, it's the thing, and it's the montage, and in 10 minutes in, you've already been situated to, you know, like you know, in terms of the colonial order. So it's yeah. Anyway, it was slick. Slick.
And to your point, because like the very first scene you see is, you know, he's you don't know this, but he's in this truck with these, you know, cigarettes, right? And he's doing this deal with the these two white guys, right? And Eddie starts the movie, remember, in his "Hey man" voice, right? He's giving that, giving you that thing, "Hey man." So you almost don't quite know what you're about to get, actually. It's a little off-putting, but Eddie's funny, right? And he's quick, right? He's super quick. And he's been able to do it, like when the guy gives him the 5,000, and he's like, no, the 2,000 is supposed to be 5,000. His lines, he's able to, the guy says something, he's able to flip it back on him, like take the line, throw it back on him. It's just so quick, right? And it's this cliche black man, right? And you get that, and you don't hear his real voice for the first part of the film. So as I'm trying to think as like an audience member, when you're watching it, you're like, okay, this might be typical of what I've seen before of black people. Oh, interesting. This is somewhat familiar of like black people being in there, the kind of cliche. Even his lips are a bit more poked out in that. Oh yeah, man, how he does it, right? Mm-hmm. And the thing is, what I want to point to people is Eddie is very smart, right? Diabolically smart. This is the thing about Eddie that I always try to point out. He knows what the fuck he's doing. And this is where I also like, I say all this to kind of also give Eddie agency and blame in this project. That's what I'm saying. I'm not here to like to give Eddie like love. I'm here to say, now, Eddie, man, Eddie knows what the fuck he was a part of, and he knows what he was doing, and he knew how to pay the pipers, right? So he's doing this sequence, and then you get the whole thing with like where the cops come in and they see him, right? And you get the whole chase scene, right? And I just want to get to the end of it just to kind of situate something, because we could talk about parts of the chase scene, but in a minute. But so you go through the whole chase scene, right? And at the end, when the cops recognize him, right, they go, "Oh, Foley," right? He does a breath and he lets his guard down. And he goes and he gives you the symbol that like, I've been doing this performance. And the thing about it is, if you're thinking about white people have this thing where they're like, black people talk differently when they're not around us, right? There is this thing about that, right? And white people feel special when what? They're allowed to be around the black folk when they really are talking the way that they really talk. So you get the fake black man first, right? And then they're going to get invited into real blackness through Eddie. Right. And that's where the shit gets real funky, because he lets his guard down. And then from every scene there, he starts from the normality of who he normally is. And then you get to watch him decide on a performance. So the largely white or largely excluded from black people's audience, from black people's life audience, gets a full movie where they get to be with an authentically black person, showing you how he code switches. And he's code switching for who? The benefit of white carceral authority in America. And that's some wild shit. But yeah, I know I went through that whole thing, but I think this scene encapsulates the entire project. But there's some funny things about the chase scene, especially the song. But I don't. The
only thing I want to quickly add to that is that one of the notes that I made about that opening scene is that the white dude that he's primarily interacting with is an Italian. So I was like, it furthers the juxtaposition from the wasps he ends up working with in Beverly Hills. It's like, so even the whites his buddy who's killed is like a grimy, dirty Italian. You know what I mean? And it's like, so, but then again, Judge Reinhold, the quintessential goofy white boy, the innocent, and Taggart, like
Taggart. Bogomil, their name.
Bogomil, exactly. It's like there's not a drip drop of Eastern or non-Western. It's like the most Western. So it's like so yeah. That was it. Again, that scene, and I think you captured it perfectly. It does so much to situate everybody right away.
Just one of the lines that I found so funny is, can I find it? He basically says, yeah, he says, so he has Lucky Strikes and Pall Malls are the cigarette brands, but he opens up the Lucky Strike and shows them that it has the tax stamp on it. Like he says they're very popular with the children.
Yeah.
He has so many like middle lines that you'll lose, and you're like, dude, what are you talking about? That's so
by
good.
the way, I saw you highlight the comments. I do think we have a duty to try to break Chidimaka and get her in trouble at work. Like I think that if we can make her break and I think I would really that's a quiet goal I'm gonna have, yeah.
The other wild thing about that scene is I don't know people. So I'm a Pointer Sisters fan. I've always been a Pointer Sisters fan. Does anybody realize what the song Neutron Dance is about? It's about nuclear holocaust. It's a pop song about nuclear holocaust, about basically, watch the music video for Neutron Dance. The Neutron Dance. Yeah. It's a pop song. Yes. Ooh, yes. It's hard to, some things never change. Yeah. I'm just doing the Neutron Dance.
Wow, that's crazy.
Dude, watch the music video and read the lyrics. It's a song about nuclear holocaust. I didn't know that for years, but I've always loved the Pointer Sisters. I grew up. My mother always played the Pointer Sisters at home. I'm a huge fan, right? And I think it was during lockdown. I went on a big Pointer Sisters binge, and I watched the music video. And the music video, they reference it. The song was made for well, no, I'm gonna get it slightly wrong. I think it was made in conjunction with the movie, and they definitely released it through the movie. So they have shots of Beverly Hills Cop in it, but then they have this music video showing people it's like a pop song about basically the fear of nuclear holocaust in the middle of this car chase scene. I just find that interesting, like the consciousness of America that we're watching this funny car chase scene with a pop song about people being afraid of basically dying in nuclear holocaust.
Wow. I never knew that. And I missed that even at the time,
Yeah.
Most break people them all back out. We back. It's back relevant. Nuclear holocaust is back on the table, everybody. So let's get back all them 80s classics.
We're doing the Neutron Dance. We're doing the Neutron Dance right today.
Damn.
So we get that, and then you get right into the stuff where basically Axel has to go back to the police station, right? He's basically the whole thing has been kind of messed up, and he goes in, and a couple of people to kind of highlight is Paul Reiser, right? Your man Paul Reiser, who's in I don't know if he's in anything past. Is he? I don't know if he's in 3. I know he's in the first 2 Beverly Hills Cops. So
my memory, I thought he gets killed in this. That's what I misremembered.
Mm-hmm. He's in 2 significantly.
Yeah. But isn't there a movie where he gets killed?
Maybe 3. I don't remember 3. 3's so bad that I just don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember it either.
Maybe in the chat, but I don't know. But 2, I remember. 3, I just couldn't process. It's such a terrible movie. But in 2, he's the one who he basically the Ferrari or the Lamborghini, whatever the sports car.
That's right.
Yeah,
I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah, he also gets killed in Aliens, right? Go ahead, Jack.
Maybe that's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Jay, you want
he doesn't get
I
killed.
know he died somewhere. Somebody killed him in the 80s somewhere.
Just that he shows up apparently in Axel F, which is the 2024 one or whatever. So he doesn't get killed at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
The other big person to point out is the person who plays Inspector Todd. And I discovered this some years ago. Gilbert Hill, who is not an actor. He's a cop.
Yeah.
He was a long-term cop. What happened was with this is, and we'll get into some of his other history too, and I'm sure y'all might have some other things, is when they decided they were going to shoot in Detroit on location, Bress was basically assigned someone in the police department to basically show him around for locations and different things and kind of go over everything. And it was Gilbert Hill, or Gil Hill as he went by, to show him. And then he said, Bress was like, this guy's just perfect, right? He said he loved him. He said, would you read some lines, right? And then he said, yeah. And he said he was a perfect person. But yeah, Gil Hill was a long-term cop there, very dedicated to the force. He ran against Kwame Kilpatrick in 2001, which is something we can dive into another time, because that sounds like an interesting race. And I'd be curious if anybody from Detroit watches this. I didn't do any studies on that. I'd be so curious at what that was like. Please put it in our comments. I would love to have any reflections on that. But he was a part of that very, pro cop, support cops, part of Detroit law enforcement. The other shit that I think is interesting about it is also just how Todd exists. And we talked about this with 48 Hours, is putting Black people in these top, well, not top, I would say middle management positions. Yeah, in these middle management positions, because he always acknowledges there's someone above him chewing his ass out, which is part of the actual lines, right?
But you got some of it left. But
the funny part is how even Eddie says it. You still got some of your ass left, right? It's just so even. Don't fuck with me, Axel. And this constant reminding, right, that I know you know shit, right? I know you know things, but there's a good way to be, a cop, right? And this trope that exists that they're trying to now rework with Eddie Murphy of the young cop who has good instincts, right, but needs to be kind of like reined in, right? He does too much extra, right? So there's also a way you can directly connect Foley to the Martin Riggs, to the John McClanes. It's part of the same milieu, if you think about it, and any other of these like solo cop kind of things. But Jay, I don't know, or Jab, if you have anything you want to add about the sequence when he's coming back, Inspector Todd, all that type of shit.
No, only that I thought, again, to your point, because I learned, I think even around the time the movie came, I feel like I've always known that he was a cop in real life. And I did remember he had his attempt at a political career as well. And similar to your point, I keep thinking of it now as I'm still working through the book, Erica Edwards, The Other Side of Terror, like and where she's focused on Black women being put in that position. But to your point, there's been this long-standing, cliche of if we have a Black figure of authority, that will, balance out all of the other racism or omission, or whatever else is done in the film. And yeah, it worked. And then again, to juxtapose against the Beverly Hills setting, it's perfect, because he's not just Black, but he's grizzled and angry. And even when he shoots back that look at Eddie, he don't mess with me, Axel. He's got that and then you go out to Beverly Hills and you get literally the sun and the palm trees, and who would ever be afraid of Bogomil? Like, even when he's sitting there shooting the guy, it's like, I can see, it's like the last thought you have as you get shot by him. It's like, it's like,
which is part of the point. Which is part of the point to me.
Yeah. I just thought he played it really well for like not an actor. And somebody said in the chat like that cops are natural actors, which makes sense, right? Like they're always kind of lying and putting on a performance, right, in what they do. So that does make some sense to me. But yeah, he plays it very well. I was actually interested in whether he improv'd any of the dialogue, right? Because it also feels very real to me from a certain generation of Black folks, like the whole like, I didn't just come in off the cotton fields, like, and then the the line about they clearly weren't worried about your little narrow ass, right? Like there was certain things in it. I'm like, yeah, my mother-in-law said that, you know, whatever. But you know, at the same time, it wasn't, which is interesting too. I was curious in terms of then like, do those lines become a part of a certain lexicon also because of this movie, or is it, you know, predating it? I don't know, but you know, it's interesting that way.
I mean, it's probably a mix. I mean, one of the things that I did see is they were talking to the screenwriter, and he was saying the thing with Eddie improving is the other people had to learn to adjust. And I saw also like an interview with like Ronnie Cox, who plays Bogomil, and Judge Reinhold, and they said that they were like, with that, you also had to have the permission. He couldn't improv and then you just like basically not like react to it. Sometimes it would mess up, but we were always reacting to him. So I would imagine Gil Hill and him, he was doing that. And Eddie was also reacting to him like, oh, I like that line. Could you say that shit again? Right. And they were kind of building that stuff around. Right. I'm sure that's totally what they did, because, yeah, he has this authenticity. Right. Which is in the authority figure. And it's funny because, like, I remember that role of Inspector Todd being a reminder of a certain kind of Black person that I grew up knowing, who is usually very, very conservative, very, very no nonsense, right? Always talking shit to you, right? Probably voted Republican, right? You know, all that type of shit. Like I grew up with these people, principals, so forth and so on. You knew who they were, right? And the fact that he was like situated in this movie in a way as a figure of authority, it reminded me, but of kind of my life. But also, I think what that does in me thinking about what you have to overcome and also respect, because at the end, Eddie does respect him. Axel does respect him. He's always a little fearful of him, right? He always has a respect for Inspector Todd. He just wants to be like, hey, man, like, I have these good instincts. So there definitely is a respect yo elders who are conservative assholes who are pro-state, you know, element to it. So there's a disciplining logic to the entire thing, right? You know, and then so you see Axel get back, you know, he comes back home and he has this shitty car, right? And so this is the other thing about the movie that I wonder how y'all feel is you definitely see this, like, in my opinion, that cops in this way are like proletarians. They're worker level, right? If you think about it, who are the people that Axel knows? We're going to see Mike Tandino come in, right? These are all basically lumpen folks, working class folks, right? So that he's situating the cop very early amongst workers or the lower classes. His car's fucked up. You go into his apartment, he's living amongst them, right? And I can't lie, when I watched this movie coupled with like 48 Hours, even with like how Riggs lives in like Lethal Weapon, right? I always were to look at cops as people who were not attached to the upper classes. And I think this is a tactic that they use from Columbo also. Because Columbo's whole thing was always the fish out of water thing. And he was investigating, you know, he would go there. He's like the poor guy, right? Drives a shitty car, doesn't speak like them. And he goes into the rich areas and he investigates white collar crime, right? Because he never is with poor people. He never investigates poor people, right? And it's part of this thing with the movie as well. And so, yeah, Axel is this regular guy. And once again, associating Blackness and lower class, right? And Blackness as a specific or eternal or, I don't know, quintessential expression of lower classness here in America, right? But good lower class if it's Eddie Murphy.
And they do it again, even when they juxtapose him against the other Black Beverly Hills Cop, when he makes fun of him for, you know, you're gonna arrest you. You're not supposed to be. And he tells him, you've been hanging around this dude too long, your white partner too long, you know, brother. You know, it's like, so it's that whole same kind of thing. So when you see that other Black, that's not the authentic Black. This is the one you want, and the one that you could even. I was even thinking as you were talking, could we see Axel Foley becoming Captain Todd or whatever his name is? like, would he become, because to your point, he respects him, you know, maybe not as grizzled, but he wants to, like, I don't know. Would we say that he would want to be that if there was a, if we caught up with Axel Foley today, would he be Captain Todd or whatever, you know, running a department or whatever, yelling at his young detectives? I don't know. But yeah, but they definitely do the whole thing. Blackness is lower class, and when you see another black man clean shaven, because I've been told, you know, again, most of my life, don't trust a black man without facial hair, and you see this clean shaven black man, and he's, you know, and then Eddie's like da 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 da. So I don't know.
So a couple, you know, there's some comments about, we haven't talked a lot about the copaganda tropes, which there's a lot of in this film, but there's a couple that we have so far that we can just name. So one is, of course, that, you know, that Eddie is the cop who cares, right, about catching the criminals above all else. And he is constantly held back by the bureaucracy, right? And this is like classic. It's in so many versions of cop films, cop movies. This idea,
we would have won Vietnam if they didn't stop us.
Yeah, like Lethal Weapon. We talked about it. Yeah, we talked about it in Lethal Weapon. You know, Riggs is that in Lethal Weapon, right? But Eddie is it here, and he, interestingly, is it in two different settings and two different contexts, right? So you have the Detroit department, right, which is seen as like run down and, you know, not very, you know, it's old school. There's not a lot of technology or equipment. And then you get to Beverly Hills in a minute and everything's high tech and clean and everything else, right? He makes the joke about the cop car being nicer than his apartment. But it's still very bureaucratic, right? And there still are these higher ups who don't want you going outside of police procedure and are constantly kind of hounding you on this, which also is total bullshit. Like the idea that, you know, police departments are like run thoroughly by these higher ups that care about procedure all the time, like, is total bullshit. But that is a common propaganda trope. And so those are a couple, you know, and I think that's an important thing, is like this. I mean, I do imagine with the cigarette, you know, chase, that his higher ups would be really pissed at him. And that's another thing, is like he disarms all these situations. So all these examples of like extreme police misconduct become laughed away through the comedy of Eddie Murphy, kind of, right? And so it also becomes an excuse for police to constantly, you know, circumvent the law, because it's like, oh, they're the good guys. Like, who cares? Like, he, you know, he's trying to do the right thing. You know, it doesn't matter that he, you know, killed 10 people in the police chase as the, you know, semis weaving through the city. That's the criminal's fault anyway, right? So yeah.
No, I made a note about that that point too, that when he gets arrested in Beverly Hills after being thrown out of the window, he does lodge, you know, a bit of a complaint saying, you know, wait, I got thrown out of the window. Why am I being arrested? But it quickly becomes a joke. It becomes humorous. So even later when there's a scene where he flips the script on the stupid security guard, and he's able to say, you let a black man in here dressed like this, and all I have to do is ask you for a match, and you know, what kind of, you know, and the cops are like, oh my, I'm so sorry, like, you know, and everything, and it's like, so all of the realities of what happens when black men and people in general interact with these police officers is completely, so even the racism of the Beverly Hills cops is turned into a joke, and then even the non-racism of the security guard is turned into a claim of racism, so that Eddie can do his little hustle routine to con the innocent, honest, doing his job white security guard, who, you know, who's of course should be asking you, what are you doing here? You know, so it's like, so to and I get in your high level audience the impatience with us getting to the copaganda. But part of it is that other than a few scenes like this, a lot of it is it's just an implicit, it's the meta deception approach to copaganda. It's just there. It's just, you already accept it. He's already the good guy. They're already even in that opening scene when the cop has the gun on him and he sees it's Axel, Eddie, as you said, takes his breath, but the cop doesn't say, he's like, oh, Axel, come on, guy. And it's like, wait a minute, you'd have shot up the whole truck and then be like, oh shit. Oh, we
shot Axel. Oops.
Whoops. Movie over. Sorry, But yeah, so the whole thing is it's very insidious, because under the guise of all the things we've been talking about and that I was projecting onto it as a 13, 14-year-old, like all of those propagandistic messages are just they just seep into every fabric of the product. It's wild.
Yeah, I mean, to like take that further, like one of the interesting things is like, so he comes home, right? He sees like the door ajar, then he sees Mikey. Mikey's in there, right? Almost in there. And you clearly see the kind of, burnt out white dude guy. Got the definitely, ethnicity trafficking in here. Hey, how I talk, right? And all that. I was like, okay, so this is the poor Goomba homie that he used to hang with, Mikey Tandino, right? He has the bag. He shows him the bearer bonds, which we'll get into at some point in about that. This whole kind of thing of like, international crime, money, stuff like the higher levels of like criminality, right? And there is this sense that also Axel is comfortable around criminals as well, right? Like he doesn't walk up in there and like, yo, you got to get out my house, man. Like Mike, he's like, let's hang. They go to a bar. Mikey's out here doing little questionable shit, doing like bets with people at the pool. They're talking about, what he used to do. He was in for like a year. He got out for good behavior, which always sound a little like, I got out a year early. Oh, you did? Right. Okay. Interesting. Nice story. Who'd you rat on?
Right. And I'm showing up at your door with some bearer bonds talking about a scheme I'm working on. Don't worry about that, though.
And Axel's just like, all right, I'm going to hang with the dude, right? I'm going to do the thing, right? And then, let's steal a car. You know what I'm saying? And like they talk about, but this is the interesting part to me, right? Is so on the stealing the car part, right? They joke about this time they stole a car together, right? And then it's clear that Mikey went to a state reform school, youth prison, whatever you want to call it, for it. And then Axel asked him the key question, like, why didn't you rat me out? And he says, you don't know? He says, why? He says, because I love you, man. And they're situating this thing that we're talking about here, where Axel's only friends are these white people, right? At various levels, right? So he becomes this figure that's very, very prominent in white American stories of a current type of magical Black person who's able to actually do things for white people in various ways, right? But this is one where it's a little switched, is because this white person did something for him, basically allowed him to not basically go down. Because what do we know? If Axel did get arrested, he never would have been a cop. So Mikey, in a way, sacrificed his life, right, to help out Axel. Right. And you get this this situation, but and so it's like making him only around white people, which is what Jab had brought up. You don't see his parents. He don't got a girlfriend. All you get is Inspector Todd. He becomes this figure that's really built for white people. Right. And he does these like different reclamation projects. Right. And like, that's like his whole life. Right. So it's brilliant watching the movie of Eddie basically reforming and redesigning or being able to give white people new hope.
And that's why I thought when I just preparing for today a little bit, learned all about the Stallone and the Mickey Rourke and all that other stuff. Like I never even but but it makes sense. It's like they didn't even feel like they needed to do much to rebuild the character other than maybe a name change and make room for the comedy, because he's just being plugged in. And it would have, and the Italian Stallion would have been a perfect, buddy to this guy. And then it's also, and just to clarify or emphasize a point I think you're making, the copaganda plays out again, because that is the saving grace. Like he is cleansed and can now go off into this cop life where his old dusty raggedy friend is, I got to leave him behind. And then of course the whole point of him saying I did this because I love you allows for, I also took it as, this is for the audience, so that when Eddie goes off into his vigilanteism, and you could imagine that this would have been Stallone shooting up all of California because his friend got killed, who just said, I did this because I love you. And you were supposed to remember that as an audience. So as I'm flamethrowering all of California, it's like, well, because it's one friend. If he murders the entire state, it's his friend said he loved him. That's why he went to jail for him. He has to do this. And it's like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Stallone was mad when they wouldn't. That's why he really left it, because they wouldn't let him take the flamethrower to Beverly Hills.
You can't destroy Rodeo Drive with a machine gun, Sylvester.
Right, go out and shoot up cops in Oregon or wherever he was in Rambo, but you can't do that on Rodeo Drive. And who is it? Was it? And who is the comedian that used to call it rodeo? He would say Rodeo Drive. Where am I getting that from? Anyway,
sure.
You got to save that for Rodeo Drive. You can't do that on Rodeo.
I mean, one legacy we have to bring in too, that obviously I think we've kind of alluded to throughout this too, is like there's just this long history through minstrelsy of the trickster trope, right? And so like, I mean, Eddie in this is sort of situated as a cop who's close enough to criminal life that he has like the cons, like he's able to con people into things, right? But there is this whole, I mean, Jim Crow, the name actually is based on, a character who was this type of figure. There's also some other terms I'm not going to use because they include slurs and things like that. But, this is a very common, thing. And it's like this idea of the Black enslaved person who does minor tricks, basically, to get certain benefits on the plantation in certain ways, but also ultimately like will not subvert the whole plantation because ultimately they like it there, right? Ultimately, like they're good with it, right? And I think that's, I'm not saying that like that's a conscious thing from Eddie or maybe even the writers of it, but you're just drawing upon a very long legacy of that kind of tradition.
And that's why that's a good point. And that's why when we talked a little bit earlier about the comparisons to Denzel, the scene and watching it again, it really stood out to me. That seems to prefigure what we also do not see in the Pelican Brief with Julia Roberts. When I can't remember the actress's name, but there's that scene when he first goes out to California. She's all done up. She is laid out on the chase lounge or the sofa. She is laid out looking up at him with bedroom eyes. It's like I was sitting there saying, so they scripted and shot this scene for Stallone, and then when they put Eddie in there, they just removed the sex. Because the whole scene to me, it was so obvious they're supposed to have sex here. But if you're extending the minstrelsy role, as I think you're correctly pointing out, there can't be no sex. Not with the white. He can't. But it was mind blowing, and I should have screen grabbed it or something, because that shot of her, she's just laid out. And he's just standing there cracking. Anyway, yeah.
I mean, it's a clear thing with Eddie if you think about it, because if you think of Trading Places, at the end you see him with a woman, but just in the thing, right? He's on the thing. 48 Hours, he's able to have a woman with permission by Nick Nolte. So he's basically with permission, he's able to basically have sex with the state's approval, right?
And it becomes a black woman too, like
it's a black woman, right?
Definitely
it's a black woman. Yeah. So in this movie, they write out any kind of love relationship, and it's funny because even in Golden Child, the next movie where he falls in love with the Asian woman, they don't have a sex scene. They actually allude to it visually, right, through a fade, right? And you don't actually ever really know until she says it that she spends the night with him. And this became a thing actually with Eddie. Eddie actually did talk about this, that they would constantly forbid this for him. He knew this, right? And he talked about it, I think, in his interview with Spike Lee, his co-interview. He actually does a conversation about this. But there's been a lot of studies about that he had, for him to be this trickster, he actually has to be desexed in this kind of way. But he can be vulgar. We could talk about the strip clubs. We could talk about that though. This idea of a vulgarity with sex and things like that. And when we get to that scene, he can say, "Y'all need to get horny," because that's what he says to. It's what he says to Rosewood.
Discussion about hard dicks too. That I was like, I don't like any of this.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't like any of this. So I'm happy to. Real quick before I forget, the only other comparison I wanted to note, the other comparison to Nick Nolte in 48 Hours is that Taggart gets to hit him last again.
We'll get to that.
Movie. Okay, all right. I just want to be
we'll get to that.
I was like, oh, you motherfuckers.
We'll get to that.
I forgot about that part. Yeah. All right.
So we basically get Mikey. He gets shot in the. So basically, you got two people come and roll up in there, and they shoot Mikey in the head. The dude who does it is once again Mike from Breaking Bad, Mike Urban Trout, played by Jonathan Banks, right? He's back, who was also in 48 Hours, playing the cop who gets killed in 48 Hours. You get younger Jonathan Banks, right? They come in, they kill Mikey, right? And then you have the sequence after that where basically Todd is like, "Get off the case," which is like another big, it's always the detective trope, right? Your friend gets killed. "I don't want to see you take this case on." He's like, "I'm not going to take it on. I need some vacation time. Okay. If I find out that you're working on this, your career is over." I mean, it's just so cliche, right? And they throw it in there. It's the perfect. I mean, I think it also does serve a purpose because it's usually with white cops, right? So now you're getting a black cop who's able to fulfill this dirty, hairy role, right? In a black, quote unquote, way. And it's just very exciting for we need the black version of this. So Eddie becomes the black version of what, of all the tropes. And then you go right from that, he leaves crazy Detroit to montage of Patti LaBelle and fucking, do, and you get in the shots of Beverly Hills, all the montage shots of Rodeo Drive, Beverly Hills. And I gotta say, man, because I didn't get to California till at least that part of California until I was an adult. And it's interesting to think about, where I grew up. Granted, I knew where Madison Avenue was, I knew where Park Avenue was in New York, but I grew up uptown, I grew up in the hood. Right. The image of Beverly Hills. And I'm watching this film again and I'm like, man, the 80s was obsessed with poverty and wealth being these realities that can't break. Right. Like they're situated as realities that are in stone. Beverly Hills is a constant. It maybe always has been. The poverty of Detroit is a constant. It always has been. They have no context, right? And they're not challenged. It's celebrated, right? Because Eddie is up in there just because the other thing that Manthea Diawara really talks about that I really love, he says, with Eddie's movies, especially his early movies, he's an escaped slave, he basically says, right? If you think about 48 Hours, even this movie, he's able to find a way to escape from Detroit and go into the liberated land of wealth amongst whites. And to the trickster point, we now get to see how the trickster is able to survive, right? In this land of opulence that he's not supposed to be in. And that's the really key thing to remember.
there was even, so it's interesting that you say that, and I'm thinking again of the comparison to Chevy Chase, or the reference, because it did occur to me watching it again that there's a scene as he's driving in that montage part, similar to Vacation, where Chevy Chase has the moment with Christy Brinkley. Eddie Murphy has the moment with the white girl in the car until the racist dude sees him, and then they have that little, but Eddie just laughs it off. Because he's like, to your point, I'm happy to have escaped. So even if I just get to glimpse at your white woman and then you with hostility look back at me, it's still funny. It's just funny. So yeah, I just thought that was interesting. That's
and it's also that right. Weird.
No criticism of this shit.
And it's that. It's just, and I'll say one thing quick to that, Jay. And it's also that weird nod. It's like I always feel like there's like this movie has so many wink winks. It's like, yeah, white guy, that your white lady is really looking at the brother. You know that, right? You know that, right?
And that's why he was mad and then speeds up when he sees that this is happening. But Eddie is like, he says, racism in Beverly Hills. But we're supposed to take it as a victory too. That racism, that look, that's a victory. The white girl's looking at him. That's a win. She's not with him. He doesn't have the white man's money. And he doesn't have he doesn't have any woman or any family. So all the sole victory is that there's this moment where a white girl smiles at him or something like that. And that's all we need. What more could you want?
Man,
I've never even been to Beverly Hills, by the way. I've never been to that part of California. Yeah.
As an actor, I went there way too many times when I live in LA. And I don't want to talk about it. Fuck Beverly Hills. Straight out.
But it's one thing that's fascinating is how often it's a setting and even a title of a movie, right? So you get the 3 Beverly Hills Cops. You also get Down and Out in Beverly Hills in the 80s. You get the Beverly Hillbillies, which obviously precedes all of this.
Don't forget 90210. Don't leave
902 Beverly Hills 90210 in the 90s. There's a Beverly Hills Chihuahua. There's a Beverly Hills. What was the other? There's like so many of these movies. It's really, and obviously, I guess like Hollywood's right there, and so it's also a convenient setting to shoot movies. But there's a movie called The Slums of Beverly Hills.
Troop Beverly Hills. Remember Troop Beverly Hills with Shelley, whatever her name is.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then like Pretty Woman is heavily set in Beverly Hills. There's a whole bunch of other movies that are just like set in Beverly Hills as a dominant setting. So anyway, I just think that's a whole other, and it's very big in the 80s and 90s. There's still other versions, but it was huge in that era. So
Beverly Hills Ninja, somebody put in the chat.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, was that Chris Farley? Right. Yeah.
That's right, Chris. Holy shit. That's right.
Yeah. So keeping with the Beverly Hills thing, then you get to like honestly one of the more famous scenes in the film is where he first goes to the hotel, the big Beverly Hills hotel, right? And he goes in, and this is where like the film shows you that like while he's the fish out of water like Columbo, he's a whole other level. He's a different level because Columbo, he does trickery, but it's always under a certain kind of morality, and the people he tricks are always the person who is the criminal. Because the thing is, Columbo always seems to know who the criminal is, which is also they share in this movie within the first few scenes. Usually, even when he sees the person immediately, like the first time he sees them, right? But you get Eddie, and part of his trickery is being a bit immoral or amoral, however you want to say it, right? He has this, so he goes into the thing, and this gets into the blackness thing, right? He walks up in there, sees his den, and this is what's fucked up about it for me, because I do think this shit is hilarious. I do think this sequence is still funny as fuck. It's so fucking funny, but it's where he's using very real shit to kind of get what he wants. So he walks up in there like, "Hey, where's my room?" They're like, "Oh, we don't have any rooms." He's like, "Oh, no. Rolling Stones, Axel Foley," right? Right? And they still have no room. And he goes to
interview Michael Jackson.
And he says, I see what's going on here, right? He does the whole thing, right? I'm just alone, and he's stuck. What's funny is the whole lines are really written well, or how he performs it, because he doesn't mention blackness to the end. He says, I see what's going on here. I'm just a small town reporter trying to do a thing on Michael Jackson sitting on top of the world, but Michael Jackson can't sit on top of the world because you won't let no niggers up in here. And you go, oh. Right, he makes it a race thing. So he also does what white people say we do. We make fake racial arguments to get what we want. So he actually justifies the conservative argument in this funny ass moment, right? And that's where it's all fucking funky, right? Because so he's able to get the room. One thing I kind of fucking laughed at is like, how much is the room? $225 a night. I was like, man, how inflation has changed.
Exactly. I thought the same thing. $225 a night. You can't get shitty rooms for $225 a night in a major city. No. So yeah, that was wild. That was wild. But Eddie being able to flip that with this iconic scene, like in this kind of conservative milieu of this film, this very funny moment that he plays perfectly is yucky. It's some yucky shit when you put it within the totality, right? Within the totality. I also think like dropping Michael Jackson, right? Putting him in there. This whole thing of like situating where black people are at this moment, right? Because I think Eddie was also smart in like, I'm with that too. Remember, like my mom always said, I'm not going to watch Training Day. I'm going to watch the new Denzel. This is Eddie. We remember that. He's Axel Foley. But we watching Eddie, and we're watching him become absolutely
Michael Jackson as well, But yeah.
No, and I think that's a good point that you're making, because it does the same thing racially that I was saying happens later in the film with the police brutality, that these things really happen, but they're turned into jokes, or they become, even to your point, conservative talking points, because it's like there's no real racism. Look at Eddie's running around here doing whatever the fuck he wants. There's no real racism. And then he makes the shit up to shame, kind of like what he did with the security guard in that other scene. The security guard is not being racist. He's doing what you're supposed to be. There's a strange person out of uniform just walking around the warehouse. He's like, hey, what are you doing here? And then all of a sudden it's racism. And now so if obviously, the point being, if you try to bring up racism's reality, they're like, nah, because I saw Eddie. There's no racism. Eddie Murphy just said it's a joke. Well, and Peapod said 225 is 716 today. Wow. Yeah. I don't know if that's accurate, right, but that sounds right. It's in the comments. It must be true.
Yeah. Yeah. Peapod knows his stuff. But what was I gonna say? So just the thing about Axel Foley's character too, right, is that I agree with all of your analysis around everything in terms of like how he encounters the racism and what he does to kind of disarm it or like make it seem like not a big deal. But it's also because he's very good and successful at what he does, and he never makes an issue, right, out of the racism. Like he can jokingly point to it, right, but he never, even when Taggart punches him in the stomach, right, and like, they're like, hey, do you want to press charges? He's like, no, like we don't. I'm from Detroit, we don't press charges against other cops, kind of thing. That because he,
first of all, being asked, would you want to press charges?
Yeah, this is ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Yeah. I mean that there's so many layers to like the whole propaganda of the Beverly Hills Police Department, right? And like but ultimately, right, because he's a good cop, right? Even if he breaks the rules, which is no problem for propaganda or really for police departments either. As long as he gets the results and he's willing to put up with our shit, there's not gonna be any problem. So that's all you got to do, right? Like you get results and you put up with the microaggressions or the racism or all that stuff, right? And we can be good. Yeah.
Yeah. So he then goes to see his friend Jenny, right, who now works at the art gallery, right? So you go into like this kind of art galleries of the 80s. So you're thinking like, post Warhol, right? The pop art, right? These things that are big in the 80s. They're trying to make a little bit of a thing in that. Then you get the famous scene him and Bronson Pinchot that comes about, where they do the exchange, right? Yeah, and it's funny. This is where you get like the first of like the queer baiting jokes that exist in the film, which like it's interesting. And I'd be curious, people who follow comedy, because I almost felt like in Black comedy in the 80s, you had to have one disparaging gay joke. You had to have one. Instead, Black stand at least one. There were often more, right? But you had to have one. So I do think there's part of that. It's like it's a part of that era of Black comedy, right? In a very negative way, right? I'm putting more like the later one where Eddie does, but I does this. But I would say this is part of it too. But I think also this idea that pop art has these weird characters. And I think that's the other thing. I think probably where the Pinchot thing comes in more, right? So these odd people, they don't really know how to speak English. That's the other thing. It's not just like a kind of an allusion to him being, LGBTQ. Also, it's like this illusion that he's not really that bright. He, can't speak English. He can't pronounce words well, right? And he's superficial, right? Because he makes. So, what is that thing with your chest? You look. It's not sexy, right? And they're going back and forth, right? And it's like this shot at like the kind of pop art thing, but it's a shot at them through a very just kind of reductive, homophobic kind of way, and also a homophobic and xenophobic way too, right? Because that's the other thing about Maitland that I find interesting, that he's not American, right? The grand villain in this is not an American, right? And he's smuggling things from other nations. So there is the other part of the conservative kind of thing, that there are these people who are out there, part of the American finance project, right? Who are sullying our great capitalism, and they're not from this country. They're not from this country.
No, that's a good point. And I don't think, well, I definitely didn't catch that about the foreigner element of it. Was this the scene, by the way, that launched Bronson Pinchot's television career? That
kind
sort
of
like this, it kind of made it, because the New York Times review that I found from the time the film came out says the brief scenes in Maitland's art gallery are greatly enlivened by Bronson Pinchot, whose accent should baffle linguists everywhere. Mr. Pinchot steals these scenes from Mr. Murphy, which can't have been easy. So they note the accent, and they're like, we don't know where it's supposed to come from. So they're even saying it's not even meant to represent an actual, if I'm reading it correctly, it's not even meant to represent somewhere you could identify as a people. It's just some foreigner,
which is
gay,
which is like his whole career. I mean, to some extent, right? Like he's always playing like Valky, right? Like it's from a made up country, right? Like if I remember correctly,
Matos or something. He was from a place that it doesn't exist, right?
Yeah. I mean, for people who don't know Bronson Pinchot, he was a big 80s character. This is really the only other movie he's in before this is Risky Business, and I don't remember. We'll have to do that at some point. I don't remember his role in it. Maybe he has a minor part, but this was like, he gets multiple scenes in this, and this helps him catch on. But he becomes a big deal, and he has this whole show, Perfect Strangers, where he's like, it's kind of like an Odd Couple type sitcom. It's like him. I don't even remember the other actor's name.
Mark Lindbaker. I don't remember that for reasons, because he was a real asshole to me once. But we talk about that another day.
That's a good reason to remember somebody. Salute. I'll remember you forever, motherfucker. Yeah, I love it.
But yeah, he had a whole career doing this, like being a kind of, this affected, vaguely Eastern European, you don't really know, figure, like, is it Greek? Is it, Yugoslavian? Like, not really sure. Right. And it was there's a whole phenomenon all to itself. We probably need to at some point dedicate an episode to something he's a bigger vehicle in, or just to him as a person.
Or even that show, because I loved that show as a kid. I was obsessed with the Dance of Joy, all of that stuff. I loved that shit when I was a little kid.
It was a big show, yeah.
Yeah. It was so sad when it got canceled. I was like, why is Perfect Strangers gone as a kid? I love that fucking show. Yeah. So yeah, he meets Jenny, and it's interesting because she's the one who got out of Detroit. Right, she's the one who has the opportunities to get out. So like that trope of the person who got out, she gets out through art, right? Which is she doesn't do it through a way that like you can get out because you don't necessarily have any direct access to capital, but you have the smarts. She studied art and all that type of stuff, so she was able to kind of like, you know,
and plus
OnlyFans
herself. Didn't exist yet, so there was nothing else for women to do. They had to find something. They had to find some. You know, they had to find another way to make money.
This is art, and that's the only way. So study your art, and maybe you'll get there. Yeah. So like, and then the way she's kind of like dressed up, like you see if she's different, and like that's the first thing they talk about, right? They talk about how they look different, right? And he tells her she looks old, right? Kind of give her a little bit of a joke, right? But you also see, like you said, the difference, right? Like they immediately make them like a brother and sister thing, right? Which like on its face is not bad. I don't necessarily need sexual relationships in all of my movies, but you know the reason why that's happening compared to other movies, because they would have had it being like, it's been so long. I missed you. How come you haven't called me? Right?
Or they would have been talking about their previous love affair. They would
yes,
have been,
what I mean, you know, kind of like
how
that
did you get over me? You know, yeah. No, right? I mean, that's the point. Like, especially now, I don't want any sex scenes at this stage of my life. I want none. You can tell me you're going to have sex, then turn the lights off and cut. I'm good. But to your point, I'm watching it here and I'm like, no, they're supposed to be doing it. You know you're supposed to be doing it. And they don't do it. So yeah, it's like
he could only be the little brother, or she could only be the little sister.
And he does say, he's like, you filled out nicely, right? So like there is that moment of like sexual tension relation, you know, there, but yeah, it doesn't hold up through the relationship.
And like, you know, they
I was hating when I saw that. My bad. I was being trifling when I saw that, because I was like, she not that. I was like, she not that. Like filled out from what? Like,
but she got. It's just that it's, you know, when it's the brother who says it to the white girl, it's like the big compliment. No, but I'm like carrying it on to you. It doesn't actually have to. That's what she needs to hear from the brother to feel better. Right? You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's more bullshit. It's more tropish bullshit, right?
Like, and I was trying to look at the screen. It's like,
maybe it's a bad angle on the flat screen,
maybe,
right?
They're shooting it in a certain way. I was like, okay, all
right. Yeah. So like one of the things they do with her that I think is interesting is that she's incredibly loyal, right? She doesn't throughout the film, like you give her the little bit of evidence, right? She's loyal to home. She never does a justification really that like, this is my job. I can't really do this. She does a couple of allusions to it, but she doesn't. But once Axel's able to like lightly prove, especially when she finds out that Mikey's been killed, she's totally on board, right? So she's like the super loyal person. I mean, she doesn't really have a character as much as she has like a kind of like device, which is not, you know, sadly different from most women characters in a lot of these movies led by men, because this movie is very much a movie about men, you know, figuring out their shit, right? You know, and then you go from that to basically Axel going to see Maitland, going to Maitland's office, right? And it's where you get the first big sequence with him going in. He has like the flowers, right? Floral delivery is my life. Like he just having these little drops, and it's just funny. It's just like, because the thing is, Eddie doesn't make big moments out them. He just says them very clearly, and you're like, oh shit, that's kind of funny, right? So you're more like chuckling than like It's like a nice chuckle, and then you get to the sequence with Maitland, played by Steven Berkoff, who we've talked about actually when we talked about Rambo 2. Because he's in that as the thing, and Berkoff's a very twisted, nasty dude. You can check our Rambo 2 talking about his things, his his Zionism, his really terrible ideas. I never thought he was that great of an actor either. But yeah, really, 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 dude. And so yeah, going back to the scene, they get in there and like you see Axel walk in, and you know it's the classic. They stonewall him, right? But then all these white dudes roll up in there, right? Take him downstairs and throw his ass out the window, right? Once he starts pressing a little bit too much, and I do find it interesting because like visually for me, it's racialized, right? I experienced like in a racialized way, but they never mention that. Like Axel doesn't say, I'm a black man, you threw my black ass out the window. He never says that. He says, I got thrown out of a window, right? And it was to a point I think one of y'all had made earlier about when is his blackness invoked and when it's not. If you juxtapose this to when he makes up things that are racist, he's really clear to show out his blackness. But in this moment where he can clearly say, will you throw a white dude out the window? You know what I'm saying? He never asks that question.
It's a good point. Just to back up real quick, it did occur to me watching it with 2026 lenses that scene where he comes in with the flowers to get access to Victor Maitland, he has to go through that very traditional homophobic association with scandalousness, disease, like it's an undercover relationship. Somebody's got some sort of communicable disease or something. He's got it, and that's why the guy's like, okay, yeah, go ahead.
That's the one a little bit later, but I know we're gonna
that
get
wasn't
to that.
then.
That's the one. That's the one at the restaurant at the club. This is the one where he first came with like the flowers.
My bad. You're right.
It's true, and it's also very coded. Like, I mean, he doesn't have AIDS, right? He does, herpes 10 or whatever. But right. It's very coded in the kind of, homophobia of that era, right?
That Eddie loved. Eddie as a comedian loved propping.
Yeah. I mean, and it was not just. I mean, it is true in terms of like I think that it almost becomes perfunctory, right, within a lot of this stuff as with black comedies and things like this, but is also just perfunctory within American cinema and movies and music, TV. Like it was so it's not a like look at how far we've come moment type of thing, but there's a huge difference. There's just a huge difference between the amount of homophobia that was just promoted culturally in the 80s and 90s by the industries of capital, really, right? And the ideological apparatuses of capital versus now. And it's totally different, where it's not to say that like there isn't, but it's kind of the default is to put in aspects of homosexual relationships or whatever that are supposed to be like to normalize them, right? And I'm not saying it's not done without all kinds of problematic elements to it, right? But it's totally changed in terms of in that era when we grew up, we were just bathed in homophobia as like the dominant kind of culture within American society, for sure. So
yeah, I mean, when we get to the scene in the restaurant, because like I think there's also this. Actually, here's how we can apply it. We can apply it to and push it forward to because now we're going to meet Bogomil, Taggart, and all of them. There is this way that there is like civil society that's a bit more together and moral, which is like put through Bogomil, Taggart, and Rosewood. Right. Jenny's now a part of it. She's been able to kind of move into this like civil society that has a much good like orientation. And then there's like this dregs of societies. Right. And Axel's able to like reference them. Right. Kind of use them to kind of get where he wants to. He also has some of the talents that come out of that world. Right. But through his love and appreciation for the Bogomils and Rosewoods, he basically has shown that he's a bit above them, right? So it's like he's able to access, he's the trickster, he's able to access the good parts of that, or the useful parts of that, in this world that also needs it. Because what happens is, and this is one of the tropes that is so dominant in the 80s and the early 90s about the rich, you see this in shit like Fresh Prince Bel-Air. Their problem is not their accumulation of capital, right, and the fact that they're willing to be part of the private property system and the exploitation of the lower classes. Their problem is they're just a little too stuffy and maybe a little bit immoral here and there, right? And so Maitland, so Bogomil's only issue is really he's a little stuffy, right? And maybe he keeps his guys a little bit too much on like a leash, right? Maitland is the degenerate, right, of that class, right? So, and then Axel can kind of come up in there and kind of help everybody out, because you get to this scene, right? So you get to this scene where Axel, he gets in there, right? And he's confronted by Taggart, right? Taggart's up there. He's questioning him. They know he's a cop. Why haven't you identified yourself? He's annoyed, and they kind of like go on a back and forth, right? And he's like, and basically like, yeah, he says to him like, like you want some static, get some static. And then Taggart hits him right in the fucking stomach, right? And that sequence is wild, because then you get Bogomil talks to him, and he comes back out, and he basically says, do you want to press charges? Right. And this scene to me is the movie. I wrote the line down. Like he says, where I'm from, cops don't file charges against other cops. And I'm like, I guess that's probably true.
Also fucking true in Beverly Hills, by the way, and everywhere else.
And it's also the scene also is conveying that real cops, good cops, don't do this without penalty. That the idea, so I saw that slightly with a different emphasis, because for me the emphasis was on Bogomil offering Eddie to press charges. That to me was in you're afraid the movie, like, because good cops, we might make an error, but we will stand up. And even if it means pressing charges against one of our own, we'll let it happen, because God damn it, we're the police. And that's where where I was in 2026 watching this, like, holy shit, man. As a kid, there's no way I would have been able to catch this. That is some slick, subtle, oh my God. Again, how did we survive this shit, man? It's so beautifully subtle. And then again, then you get to see a black man get punched on screen and nothing. And again, because I've watched, 48 hours again to watch your discussion of it. We just saw Eddie, dude. You just did this to Eddie. So in my timeline, in my lived experiential timeline, Eddie just got punched again by an old white man and didn't do nothing about it. And I'm just sitting here turning over tables and I'm like, you motherfuckers. But yeah, that scene. Oh man, that was diabolical. Yeah.
I gotta read how this is treated in the script, because it's great. So this is after. So Taggart, or Bogomil, tells Taggart to come here, right? Says all the detectives in the room wear quiet, well-pressed suits, conservative shirts, ties knotted all the way up, highly polished shoes. Their hair is short and combed at all times. Now we see the man who sets the example for them, Lieutenant Andrew Bogomil, Chief of Detectives for the Beverly Hills Police Department. Bogomil speaks to Taggart in a low voice. Taggart, pale, walks back over to Axel. Bogomil follows a step behind. To Axel, sir, I have to apologize for striking you. I have no excuse. Everything up to now, including the punch, has seemed to Axel to be a normal cop-prisoner exchange. This apology, though, is outside of Axel's experience.
Wow.
But what's also
how does
wild
that play out on screen, though?
It's kind of like that, actually. It's like that because, it's kind of like that. And like, I think the other thing that it begins to solidify is because we don't see any bad cops. So say like we're sealing this movie from the world. So you don't see crooked cops or anything like that. You just see one cop in Axel who breaks the rules a little bit. It just basically shows you that the core of the fraternity order of cops is actually a good project. It's a project of brotherhood, mutual respect, all of these things, right? Like, remember, Bogomil in a later scene says we go by the book, meaning that the book is a good, strong, moral code, right? If there's any diversion from it, it's individuals who make this issue, right? You know, right. I mean, or even 8 years before, Serpico was the dominant vision of cops.
Oh shit, that's
right?
crazy.
Think about that. You're dealing with that as well, right? Where people did not trust cops. So I also think, and we've talked about this, I mean, I think we all agree with this, the 80s is largely a reclamation project for cops and policing. Right, to kind of juxtapose, like you said, with all of the fucking police brutality and all the police corruption, especially in LA, that is happening at that time. Right, they really need it, and it's coming from people like Bruckheimer and Simpson who have great relationships with cops. These are their friends. They're hiring them to do shit all the time. Right, this is also part of the project. They want to basically say, "Hey, man, we see y'all. We know y'all getting killed in the press. That Serpico shit is over. That's some New York shit also. That's not how we do shit out here. We know you're better. Let's do a thing." Honestly, it's a love letter to policing when I watch the film. It is a love letter.
One other comment to make, too, is that in Detroit in this period, like right before it, like, you know, great chapter on it in Detroit, I Do Mind Dying, but there's the whole campaign against stress, stop the robberies, enjoy safe streets was what the acronym stood for. But it was a unit, right, where cops would even dress as women, right? This came up actually in the episode we did with Hiram, because Sylvester Stallone in that dresses up as a woman a couple of times, right, to like catch the guy. But it was setups, right? So like, it's funny because this is what Eddie Murphy's doing in the beginning, right? With the cigarette stuff, right? Is he's setting people up, right? And then gonna basically pounce on them and be an undercover cop, right? And it obviously goes awry, but it was a huge scandal and there was a huge movement. It was one of the big things that came as the Detroit Revolutionary Union movement, the League of Revolutionary Black Workers, as they start to like kind of, I don't want to say this like fall apart, I guess, but I don't want to say it in that term because it's not totally true, but there's splits and things like this, right? So in that period, one of the big campaigns though that continues on is this campaign to stop stress, right? So to stop these, because people are getting killed. Like that's the thing, is where they set up these things where cops are trying to, you know, pretend to be muggers or pretend to be women to catch muggers and things like this. There's all these shootouts that happen and all these people that are killed, right? And so anyways, it is a time of intense, I mean, every era of American society is a time of intense police conduct, but there's a lot of it that's going on at that time for sure.
Yeah, I'm just pulling up the scene in the background because I wanted to refresh my memory of what was going on. My bad. Go ahead. I'm listening. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the next sequence is when we get to, I mean, kind of going through it. So he's asked to basically, chill out, don't do any of the stuff, right? If we see you, so forth and so on, right? Jenny, she gets him out, right? And they go on their thing. You get the sequence where he's back at the hotel where he's talking about she's laid out on the bed, and she's laid on the bed, and what does he do? He orders dinner for Taggart and Rosewood, for the cops out there, right? And you get these kind of cross cuts to Taggart and Rosewood in doing their stakeout. And the immediate thing they always do with Rosewood and Taggart in all of the movies is basically make them like two normal guys, right? Like Rosewood is like the single guy, right? He's like a kind of like good American heart. Like the other thing I've always wondered about this movie is, well, Rosewood clearly is not from LA. He has to be like, I always feel like Rosewood reads like he's from fucking, like, I don't know, Kansas or something like that, right?
Yeah,
Iowa, right. And same thing with Taggart. Like, Taggart was in the military, and then, you know, he somehow landed in LA because there were cop jobs out there, but he's probably from like Illinois or something like that, you know, right? But and normally they would read as like, you know, fucking racists, right? If they're cops, but they do everything to drain out any kind of like suggestion that they would do anything impropriety, right? They're always by the book. We can't drink. We can't do this. Billy, stay. You know, if he's getting at Billy, it's because Billy Rosewood is like, you know, he's being too moral, or he's being too giving, or he's not following the book, right? And Taggart's just being a little bit too, you know, stiff at these things, right? So you get that juxtaposed with him ordering the food. He gets them this food. They get that, and then you get where Eddie runs down and he puts the banana in the tailpipe, which, you know, later becomes a, you know, one of the classic jokes that I still crack the fuck up on. This is so funny, right? And they can't catch him as he gets to see the warehouse, which has like the coffee grinds and all that type of shit about like the drugs, and then eventually goes to the bonded lot, right, where she drives.
But he has to explain to detectives that drugs would be smuggled using coffee grinds. And I'm like, so in California, in Beverly Hills, they have no interaction with cocaine, you know, where the only place that can afford the drug. Like, so now he has to explain to these
in Beverly
Hills,
where all them 16-year-olds are having parties with lines everywhere. They made movies about it.
So I just thought that was another little, the inner city Detroit black criminal background cop knows this, but you innocent cops, there's just, why are there coffee grinds? It was bizarre. Yeah.
And it's a good point, because there's also a couple other things going on in this, you know, in this era, but there's also the, you know, a kind of trope here. I mean, one is that most police departments are in very early stages of diversification across the country. So most cops were white for a long period of time. And, you know, the kind of diversification, right, was a purposeful effort. And the LAPD, I have to look, Dylan Rodriguez has written about this. I think it really takes off in the 80s, which Beverly Hills, one thing just to note is interesting, because Beverly Hills is in LA County, but it's its own incorporated city. So it has its own police department. So that's why we don't get LAPD here. We get Beverly Hills Police Department, which I also think is kind of, you know, slick from the movie, because it would not be at all believable if this was supposed to be LAPD.
Exactly.
You know, but on the diversification stuff is going in, but part of the argument around this stuff, right, there's different ones, but, you know, is this kind of, you know, the cops actually, the white cops actually need the Eddie, right? They need somebody who's a little more street smart, who knows. I mean, of course they know fucking cocaine can be covered by coffee. Like, this is not like, you know, like drugs didn't just appear in the 80s either, right? You know, but this idea that he's the one who's going to sort of teach them this stuff, and it actually connects into his role. And I know Mtume and I talked about this when we did Trading Places, right? Of this idea of him being able to bring in this kind of like street smarts into this old, you know, you can't just have the old wealth just reproducing itself. They need new ideas. They need to be connected to, you know, the cities and things like this, right? And so it's playing that same kind of role within, you know, police procedure, that actually not only do they need Eddie because he breaks the rules, but he also understands this world better than they do, is part of the argument.
Right. And take the movie just as the movie. Don't add anything else to it. If you read what this movie says about Beverly Hills, they treat it like it's like this hermetically sealed place that has not been touched by anything from outside of it. Because I will say, when I first went to LA, I thought Beverly Hills would be so separate, But no, dude, you literally drive right into it. It's just another, like, part of the city of LA. Granted, it's its own part of it. It has its own police department. That's because of the wealth. But like getting into Beverly Hills, you don't need to go through anything. You literally just drive down fucking Sunset. You're fucking there, right? It's right, and you go through it, and then you go to West LA. Actually, to get to West LA, you have to go through it if you're coming from the east. You just can't not go through it, right? Unless you go on like the highways and things like that. If you're on the main strip in LA going through, you cut through it. So they want to give you this idea that it's sealed off from everything, even from knowledge of the outside world, right? So, and this adds to like this idea that they're cut off. Like you would almost feel like Beverly Hills is like some place in the middle of America, right? Like it's totally cut off from anything, which is fucking absurd. And that the person who's bringing it in is this weird art dealer, Victor Maitland. He's the one who's sullying it, right? Because you see no one else sully it. No one else is sullying Beverly Hills in this movie, right? It is fucking Victor Maitland. He is the guy. And it's such bullshit, right? And it's serving
because
then
it supposed to be from again?
You don't really quite get it.
He's just
you don't quite get it. But I mean, yeah. but he has an accent. I mean, and Stephen Burkoff isn't. He's not American, Stephen Burkoff, right? And and he talks, and they associate things like art and smuggling all with foreigners. I think making him a generic foreigner probably works better from them, Yeah, I mean, you get like the bonded lot scene, and we talked about this, right? So where he goes in, right, and he needs He needs to find a way to basically expose this whole thing, right? And get the information. So, Jab, you pointed out perfectly of him like manufacturing this shit, right? But, and like saying, you gonna let a black man in here. And I remember when I watched that scene as a kid, I actually felt so powerful. I was like, I want to be able to do that. To roll up into some white shit and like play a character, get all the white people fucked up, and play this authority. I mean, I still laughed as hell when the little white dude, he goes to him, he goes, "Do you have a warrant?" he goes at dude. Is that your Porsche outside? Right? Like, it's just so fucking good. But like, I also realized how much. But I realize how much of a trick that shit is, right? Like, that's where my power would be situated, in like these fleeting moments that I could trick white people into doing what I want. But no actual material power will ever change. All I end up doing is helping fucking rich white people catch another rich white person who's breaking the law. That's all I'm actually doing. But I just remember that shit. I was like, oh, when I was a kid, I was like, this shit is powerful, man. Oh, Eddie killed it. He got Eddie. These white people. Tell him, yeah. And I'm like, oh man, these false senses of power.
And then he would note it even in his own. Remember, in one of his stand-up routines, he notes that in the reverse, talking about the effect that Rocky had on white people. Like, you see Rocky beat up everybody, walk outside, you think so it's like so to your point, like Eddie knows he's no dummy. He knows what's going on. And we're all out there claiming victory. Same thing in 48 Hours, where he does the thing in the bar with the cowboy hat, and he's playing, he gets to tell everybody off and all this other stuff. You're like, yeah, get him, Eddie, get him. And then it's like, yeah, but no real power is exchanged hands. Nothing is. It's all performance and tricksterism. That's, oh my goodness.
Yeah. So yeah, he does all that, and then I don't know if we want to add anything to that, but then he basically goes back to the hotel. And this is, to me, like where the key shit really begins to happen in terms of like him supporting like the cop world, because then it's when he goes into the back of the car with Taggart and Rosewood after they've been like dissed by Bogomil for the banana in the tailpipe. They're still waiting there for him. He goes in, right, and he basically says when he says to him first that like, I'm sorry, I had to kind of get away for a minute, right? And then they say, and then Rosewood thanks him for the food, right? And then Taggart is like, nah, man, he was trying to fuck with us. And he says, nah, man, like, I did this for y'all. That actually came from the heart. I know what it's like to be on a stakeout. And for the rest of the movie, you basically just see Axel always propping up Rosewood and Taggart. His job is to actually make them better cops.
They become a team that extends to the rest of the. So that was something that I thought of when you mentioned earlier. You were comparing. At some point earlier in the discussion, you made a point about this becoming the vigilante. This is the something like, in my head, it was the Clint Eastwood vigilante
Riggs.
cop.
In
Riggs,
that tradition, it sits in there.
But with Eddie being the black man, he can't be this solo individual going out. He has to be partnered and given authority and legitimacy by the white police officers, who will then become his. Because after that line, I saw that line too, and it was like, oh snap. Then now they're all on the same team, and that's like, we're and it becomes like almost like a buddy cop thing where he's sort of the lead, as opposed to the vigilanteism is gone. He's now just he's a de facto Beverly Hills Cop, and even Bogomil is giving him. I don't want to skip ahead, but they literally end up working. They're working together, and it's like all the jurisdiction and all the whatever legality is. As I'm watching this, I'm even at one point I even wrote down, wouldn't everything in court be thrown out just because of how this case was built? With you got a Detroit cop coming over here doing undercover shit, shooting people up, and somebody's really gonna go to jail off of this.
Well, Captain Bogomil says he's gonna file a report, and the fucking chief is like, okay,
that's right, because he lies.
Tells you everything.
Right.
That tells you everything.
Right. That's right. The chief says, "Is this the truth?" All right.
Yeah. All right. You're right. Good work. Good work.
I also think it's interesting, just in the era that it comes out, that Eddie's vigilantism is not violent, right? So we get you get other versions later on. I mean, not to say it's totally not. There's a little bit of violence, but his character is not grotesquely violent in a way of a Rambo or a Riggs, right, or anything like that, where he's like, it's like, yo, you're constantly shooting everything up. It's not that. It's like that. Basically, he and they, part of the way they get around it is saying he's on vacation, right? Is kind of one of the kind of slick things that they do to sort of, even though you know that he operates outside of police procedure in Detroit, there's kind of a way in which they accept it, partly because he is on vacation there. And so him breaking the law and doing those things, they can kind of follow along. And then as he gets into trouble, then they come in at that point. But they don't actually have to do the illegal searches, the no-knock raids, like those kind of things, right? Because he does all of that himself. But he doesn't do it through violence first. It's the kind of trickery, sneaking into places, picking locks, like minor things like that, in terms of, that kind of stuff.
Even I just saw it. No, go ahead.
But he's really good at self-defense, though, also, because think about the next sequence where they go to the strip club, right? The nasty girl part, and he starts with the little thing,
And why is he? That was bothering me too. Why is he sitting there the whole scene? He's sitting there like this,
doing it.
Right? He's got a hard dick. Everybody's dick is hard, and I was like, oh.
Right. He's like, your boss isn't hard, but it really is, right? He's like making these jokes, trying to get them to kind of get their blood up, right? But then he's doing all of that, and then he notices the two white guys walk in the room with the trench coats, right? And he tells Taggart, like, this is serious, right? And he goes in there, sacrifices his body, right, with a dude with a shotgun to trick him with something about a drunk dude, right? Able to disarm him, right? Does all this shit, and then what does he say at the end? He said, "You're a hell of a cop, Rosewood." He basically he champions Rosewood, he gets them to activate themselves, right? He activates themselves, and he's like a football coach, or not even the head coach. He's like the training coach who does shot training. Yeah. So when your shot is off during the game, you go in and he comes and he grabs you. He's like, "Go, get that wrist together, right? Like he's like the mind, he's the details coach, motivational, right? And so when he uses violence, it's in this like defense and also to activate others. Because like we'll get to the end. Remember, he does not shoot Maitland himself. He shoots him with Bogomil. Right, and they're very clear to have that in this long shot. He shoots him with Bogomil, and I'm like, oh man, this is wild, right? He can't even get the final murder alone.
No, you're right. And in the scene you're just describing in the strip club, to the point of the comment, if that was John McClane, he'd have shot up the whole. he'd have pushed the cops aside and been a. Rah, rah. But Eddie's like, no, he does a little trickster thing, flips the dude over, disarms him with the shotgun, and then to your point, Reinhold runs over and puts the gun on the dude. He's like, oh, great job. Oh.
Yeah.
Taggart puts the gun on the so it's like the most non-violent and even the shootout, it's Eddie shoots a couple of bad guys in the context of their having many more men and higher powered weaponry. And Eddie has his teammates doing a lot of the shooting too. So he's not just, it's not a vigilante. He's in there by himself, because that would have been John McClane going into the mansion by himself and taking out 40 different bad guys and doing all, but here, no, Eddie's, and I even thought of the scene in Harlem Nights, because all these people are shooting all these machine guns and Eddie's running around, pop, pop. And I was like, Eddie's like, he must have been thinking about this when he made that movie. All these years I'm running around in these Beverly Hills Cop bullshit movie. Pop, pop. And everybody else, brrr, brrr, pop, pop. It's like,
that shit is still so hilarious.
If you don't get that shit out of here, Tommy, I'll shoot you myself.
That shit is so funny.
There's a big, and this is a big trope too, I think, in these 80s movies. We've talked about it in some of the others. It came up in Lethal Weapon too. This idea that cops have outdated weaponry, right? This is always kind of like it's sort of an ongoing thing, right? But just this idea of like the criminals are way more armed than the police are, so we need to get them better guns, right? Like this is kind of like one of the things I think is trying to implant into the public.
And they had that in two, though, that Rosewood has a secret arsenal, right? When you feel it, Rosewood has like the secret arsenal. It's like this other little thing. Oh, Billy, what are you doing? How do you have all these guns? That's so uncharacteristic for cops. It's like, really?
Billy likes to shoot people.
He likes to shoot the guns.
Billy's probably got 20 or 30 bodies on him quietly, and he's just sitting there smiling like hi.
Billy is Kaiser Soze, right? You know what I'm saying? Like,
exactly.
So the next sequence, which is just taking it to the next level, is when they go back to the police station, right? They go back to the police station, and Bogomil's like, what happened? And Axel does the big story about, the super cops, right? And like he says, these guys disarmed them. I was just there drinking. I like these degenerate type of things. You know what I'm saying? They wasn't doing nothing. They're super cops. Bogomil, of course, is like, doesn't believe it. And then it's Taggart who tells the truth, right? He says, no, he's lying or something like that. And he goes through it. And then Eddie goes to the part. Axel goes to the part and basically is like, I'm trying to figure y'all out. The story was working, all this type of stuff. And there's this shot that I think is one of the most important shots in the movie. In the middle of when Eddie is basically telling Taggart and Rosewood the story was working, they cut to Bogomil, and Bogomil does this like endearing smile. Like he's like, yeah, like he's a good guy, right? And I'm just like, oh, this is ugly. And it's amazing how film works, is you're getting him speaking, but you're getting the reaction to what he's saying through Bogomil. And basically you're stamping that Axel is a great person is through Bogomil. So Bogomil also has been shown to be the kind of like the highest level of authority and good moralism. Right. So he has now stamped Axel. He's like, you know what? This guy, he's a little He's a little whirly, but he's good.
Absolutely. And I mean, and obviously that'll come up again in the end, but just to say for a little bit more, like what's happening here, right there. This is a slick propagandistic promotion of police falsifying reports, right? So like, I mean, everybody knows cops bullshit their reports. They're always incorrect. Like one of my time being arrested was based on a falsified police report, and it, when I brought it up to like the whatever person, the little attorney they let you talk to that's not really going to represent you, but it explains your options there, legal defense or whatever. He's like, look, man, like you're gonna get a real attorney. Like nobody's gonna, you either say you did it or and we'll wipe it away in a year or whatever, or you get an attorney, right? Like the no state appointed person is going to promote the idea of you saying that cops falsify their police reports, right? It's just totally accepted, right? Even though it's technically speaking a felony, right? But again, like they're just oh, like Axel's really good. He made all this shit up, but like that's good what he's doing there, and we get the full stamp of approval on that at the end. But even in this scene, Bogomil is smiling through it. Yeah.
No, and in terms of filmmaking, I thought this was good foreshadowing. Like they're, but to the more important point of the messaging, yeah, they're like, that's the scene. Because I saw that too in the rewatch. He's like, but again, my 13-year-old self would not have caught that. I'd have been all in there like, oh, they fucked up Eddie's scheme, oh, and not catching these little subtle things. But that was a slick little. He's like, oh, now he's a good guy. I got him.
Well, or also that, like, what's a falsified report if it's to, pick up a couple of guys who were just really good.
And that's the only reason they would do it, though. They would never falsify for any other reason. It's just for the greater good, like all the lies that the police officers tell. It's just because we know the bad guys are bad.
Yeah.
But we don't have the guns. We don't have we're hamstrung by policy and procedure and high morals.
Bureaucracy, all that stuff. So now you get the two new guys that are going to trail him, the brother and the white dude, and you get one of the more famous sequences because he's camping outside of Victor Maitland's house. And then dude rolls up, and he says, he says, so what team? He said, are you the B team? We're the first team, He says, we're not going to fall for the banana in the tailpipe. Right? And then you're not going to fall for the banana. You're not going to fall for the banana in the tailpipe. But I ain't gonna lie, man. To this day, that shit to me cracks me the fuck up.
Of course, the shit works.
Man, I could have fallen for the banana in my tailpipe. Like it shit is fucking hilarious. Because there is an element of truth. Because he says it's like you've been hanging around with this white dude too long. I just cracked the fuck up at it as I'm like, yeah, I hear you, dude. Right, but what is being done in service to you're gonna diss this brother. It's just he's trying to school these two because they come along later too, right? They eventually get wrapped up in it as well. So yeah, you now get after that you get him trailing Maitland, him like losing the cops. We see his wit and all that type of stuff, and then you get they go right to the club from here, right to Maitland's
by the
club.
Way, he's proposing to while he's getting ready to follow Maitland, he's pulling out his beer from the trunk of his car to have his picnic, and I was like, "This is interesting." Standing there in front of a cop saying, "I'm about to crack a brew and be on stakeout and then run off and follow." I was like, "That's an interesting choice. That's all right." Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
So I think he now gets into Maitland's. This is where they go to the country club, right?
Yeah.
Yes, he goes to the country club. He parks the car, makes that joke, and then Eddie does his depiction of a. And I just don't. He's definitely supposed to be gay, right? But there's also this concept that like gay, drugged out, there's nothing worse than Maitland being a rich dude who slums. So it's also just like the rich dude who sneaks out and he's slumming with like black people and who do drugs, and oh my god, it's like the whole thing of the country club. It's like the great country club rumor, right? Jay, you gonna say something?
Oh, I just like in my mind, I'm like, I think he's supposed to be a black sex worker, like a gay sex worker. Like, I mean, it's not said explicitly, but like that's, I think, the way you're supposed to get it. Yeah,
and he slums down there. So like Maitland is this, and that's like the thing that's like going to be the worst, and nobody wants to touch that because like after he tells him that he was a herpes simplex 10, right? He says like, that's the guy. How about you go tell him this? The guy's like, I don't want to touch this world, right? Oh my God, Maitland has these weird characteristics, and we've talked about it just a minute ago. We actually missed the Damon Wayans thing that happened earlier.
Yeah,
it's part of bananas. Like it's. With bananas, which is also a total like a whole phallic thing, right? So banana in the tailpipe, there is a phallic thing.
All the bananas,
right. It's just so messed up. But the way that they use things like being queer, being black of a certain type, right? They all associate with the dregs of the world, right? And it's this conservative, very 80s, very Reagan era looking at stuff, and that like. You might be in a country club, but you're like this far away from the dregs being able to sneak in if they're witty enough, right? It's that fear that rich people have.
My apologies. We've mentioned him several times, and I have to do my regular acknowledgement. We just celebrated our 22nd anniversary of when Reagan died during our wedding, so I just salute. Which is, by the way, how I remember that he died in June. And I don't know if you did this on purpose, but I noted that the film is taking place in June because when they're in the strip club, the way Eddie Murphy identifies the two criminals coming in to rob the place is that he says, "Why is he wearing a trench coat in June?" And I said, that's perfect. We this whole thing is being set up perfectly. So I know you did that on purpose. That's why we're doing this one in June. So well done, you two. Perfectly set up. But yes. Rest in piss. I agree with Trey.
So now we get him confronting Maitland. Oh yeah, the very clear stunt double. I always noticed that.
I didn't catch.
I wonder. I'm like, is that the same dude who was the stunt double in 48 Hours when he was boxing Nick Nolte?
Oh,
might have been. And this is definitely not Mike Ehrentrout here either.
Right, they're both doubles, right? See, Tom Cruise would have been doing that himself. Shame on Eddie. Eddie's not real. Tom would have been throwing dude for real.
Nah. Yeah, and you get him confronting Maitland, and like, it's like the new version of the fish out of water going into the country club, confronting the degenerate rich person, and making sure he can get him down and all that, and he gets arrested again. And taken out. I don't know if we have anything else with that, but then so then he gets taken back to the police station. And this is where he finally basically tells Bogomil and the crew, what's really going on, right? And this is where you begin to see them kind of like all circle in, right? And the interesting thing I found out about that sequence is that Bogomil knows about all of the coffee ground stuff. So there's kind of this suggestion that like Bogomil is keeping certain things from his police officers. I get it like that because when he talks about the coffee grounds, right? When Axel says that's the evidence that I have of the drugs, and then Taggart says coffee grounds. You brought this up before, and Bogomil immediately knows. He goes, no, coffee grounds are used to hide drugs to throw off the dogs. I've always read it like, Taggart and Rosewood are kind of like his sons, that he like keeps the real world from them, right? It's like a paternalistic like ceiling, right? Because they don't really need to know about all this stuff, right? But now they have to kind of grow up, because now this world has infiltrated Beverly Hills and Axel's helping us grow up. So Bogomil, because they always talk about Bogomil like he's a dad, right? Because the second one is all about Bogomil getting shot. So they all rally around, dad, the father figure, the chief figure being gunned down, right? And there's always the guy above him, right? Because you get the guy who's just the man, who went to Victor Maitland's house, right? There's always the guy above him that they also don't like. They all love Bogomil, right? And they have it in 2. Also, they have like the new police chief who sucks as well, right? And they all love Bogomil.
That just reminds me, Brigitte Nielsen is in Beverly Hills Cop 2. She, at that time, wasn't she married to Stallone? Who was supposed
I don't know if she was still married to him, but they were married.
It's an interesting overlap, because if he was supposed to have been in 1, then it would have been perfect. But then he made Cobra based off of what was supposed to have been Beverly Hills Cop, right? And she's in that too, isn't it? Right? Okay, and I think I remember she's in that.
Oh,
too,
she's in.
she?
I haven't seen Cobra in like
Cobra?
decades.
I haven't either. I'm probably wrong, but
yeah,
I have that memory at least. I don't know if that's right. I'm gonna look it up real quick and see if she's in it. Yeah, she's in Cobra too.
Yep.
So maybe somebody was trying to keep the universe together somewhere. I don't know. But that scene you're also talking about, because I got it on.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh shit! Yeah, she does.
Very,
right.
very.
Oh my god.
Very, very famously.
Oh my god! Oh my god! I wish I could have. Stephen, please. Some things don't need to be brought up. We don't need to remember every goddamn thing, man. Oh my god! But in that scene, by the way, this is the scene where they also confirm the new team, where they come back to the police station, and the second team of surveilling cops is there, and Bogomil stops them and says, no, now we're going to listen to Eddie give us his evidence for everything, and even the chief shows up and gets on board to a certain extent, or through a lie. I think they lied to the chief, but the point is, you could see the team coalescing, and I think even now I'm thinking this is even more of a thing, further suppressing any possibility that this could be a vigilante thing for Eddie. There's no, but anyway, yeah.
He's there to activate. He's there to activate them.
That's wild. That's wild. Yeah.
So what? So next, yeah, the Brigitte Nielsen stuff was. I could go on a whole. That's a whole rabbit hole.
We can't right now.
We can't. It's also too depressing. I'm trying to keep this on a certain level of.
Yeah. It is for sure. So what happens next?
The movie kind of gets into like the kind of like roller coaster of like getting to the end, because like the next sequence is, basically the chief is like, Axel has to leave, right? Bogomil says, I can't help you because you don't have the direct evidence of the cocaine, right? And so Billy's supposed to drive him out, right? And this is the big thing with Rosewood that I think always exists, is that Rosewood always has this morality that goes above the law, right? He understands that it's almost like the law and procedure has its limitations, and there's like good things that need to be, taken care of, and sometimes you have to break the law. So in a way, like Rosewood is given not a vigilante, like well, actually, here's what I would say to that, Jab. They're all allowed to be vigilantes. You're right. It's like Axel can't be the solo vigilante. He's not allowed that. He's not allowed that kind of agency. But he's allowed to activate the necessary. I mean, it's the same thing with fucking Murtaugh, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the whole thing that Riggs does for Murtaugh. He basically activates that out of him. We talked about that when we did Lethal Weapon. It's a little different because it's still 2, but here basically Eddie is like activating a department, right?
Yeah,
this department. Go ahead.
It's a difference between some of the 70s like framings, right? Like you have so just to throw a couple of different versions of this out there. I mean, so you have Death Wish, right, which is like full vigilante, also very racist, all of that stuff. You have Dirty Harry, which we do need to do some of the 80s Dirty Harry films.
With Jim Carrey in one.
Yep. He was in Deadpool, right? I think. Yeah.
Wait, what?
He's the guy who gets killed early in one of the Dirty Harry. Sorry to do that. Yes.
Holy shit. Wow. Okay. All right.
Jim Carrey's 80s career in general is just fascinating compared to the 90s stuff. But then who else was I thinking of? But anyways, the point being is that this is not really vigilantism in the sense of the person who like is totally operating outside the law in order to get things done because the law isn't. It's actually kind of an innovation of that, which is not new to this film, right? But it is very much a part of this film, which is this idea that you need the cop that goes outside procedure, is willing to, I mean, it's similar. Die Hard has it, Lethal Weapon has it. So there's a difference between the movie that like authorizes the vigilante and where the vigilante, like Batman is a good example of this, where the vigilante like sort of operates in tandem with the police officer or with the police force, but completely outside of it, right? Whereas here, it's like we need that person actually as a part of our department, and he's going to teach us how to do good police work, essentially, right? Which is basically what's happening here. Is that Foley is just a much better cop, but he's a much better cop that doesn't like even anytime a warrant gets brought up, he's like, oh fuck, guys, like that's going to take too long. Like I'm just gonna break in here and you're gonna follow me, and or you're gonna wait until you hear a gunshot and then you run in or whatever, which is, I mean, when you get to a lot of the broken windows style policing, it is like just the mass promotion of that as formal department policy. It's like, how do you create these conditions where probable cause becomes like so vast and that it's just sort of supercharged as something that is so easy to generate, that people actually think about probable cause generators, right? Which is what Shot Spotter is, for example, right? It's like it claims that it picks up a gunshot even though it doesn't really have the ability to do that, and then automatically deploys the police there with probable cause because that's its whole purpose. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, and one of the sequences is when they're in the car and Rosewood and Axel's like, take me to the warehouse, and Billy's like, I'm not going to do this, right? And he pleads to, like, he said y'all like robots, and he says this is very personal for me, right? Suggesting that they can't connect emotionally to like the kind of like real moral dilemma. Right, they've become overly procedural, right, and that is the problem with cops, right? And this coming from a black man from Detroit, this is his critique of policing, is pretty deep, right? Because these conservative people could always go, well, look, man, Axel Foley, here's what he says. Our problem is just that we're too procedural, that we need to kind of loosen up a little bit, let it go a little bit, get into gunfights, right? Break the rules a little bit, right? So they go to Jenny, they get her, they take her, they all go to the warehouse, and that's where Maitland and the goons come in because they see the cocaine in the coffee grind. So everything that we think is there, he finally is able to see it. So what we know is now proven. Maitland sees it. He's the big villain, coming out of the cars, right? And Billy's watching it from afar. He's like super nervous, right? And they create, yeah, he's in this dilemma crisis, right? And they do all this. And this is what movies do. They set up, these sequences to justify someone going in and doing it so they can get you into like hyper violence, right? So they set up this sequence because the big thing is that they kidnap Jenny, they take her in the car, and then you have, he doesn't see Axel leave, so he has to go in, and then he goes in, and Billy, and you're right, Billy's a dude. Billy's out here popping people. I mean, I think Billy got the most bodies out of anybody, right? He's the body count.
And even during the
shit.
shootout, he's on the ground reloading with Taggart, cracking jokes.
This is like Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid.
So I'm like, I was like, wow, this is some wild. Yeah. He's definitely all for it. But yeah, sorry, go ahead. Which is weird because to your point in the scene, I'm even looking at it now. He's in the car looking terrified and nervous about when do I go in? They've got, but then once the bullets, I don't know. It's like, I don't know exactly what they're trying to say, but some slick shit.
So yeah, you get all into, and then you basically cross cut that with like, so that he calls Taggart, right? Tells Taggart, and they're all starting to like, it's funny, they're all breaking rules at different levels, because then Taggart says, only call me, right? Because he gets the other two guys who are following him, so they want to seal this from Bogomil, right? So Taggart basically goes to kind of find it and help Billy. He tells the other guys to go to the warehouse to go check out the stuff, see what's going on, right? Then Bogomil's like, where's everybody? And he's like, I don't know where they are, right? So he's like, well, let me go, let me go and get this. So he gets in on it. So you're seeing this like Axel basically it's like a domino effect of his, insistence on like making sure this thing is solved because he knows the real shit, right? So it's basically like activating them all to become good cops, right? He's basically like getting like the best out of them, right? And so they all mobilize, and it all basically gets back to Maitland's house, right? And Axel's like trying to pick the lock, right, to get in there, and then Taggart, and they have the whole thing about that, and like Taggart's like, no, you can't do this, you gotta wait 20 minutes, and then Rose was, there's a woman in there, right? Like they really know how to set up all the like the things to pull your moral heartstrings. The kidnapped woman inside, right, in a compound, right? And the last thing I'll say is like, I just got Scarface vibes too. Like I was like, it came out a year before, and I was like, oh, this is the Tony Montana. Victor Maitland's not an art dealer. He's Tony Montana, or he's Sosa, right?
Cops would never pick a lock if there wasn't a kidnapped woman, or...
Only, yeah. Only, and you get the is this when Billy does his when does he transform and say, I'm going with Axel against protocol? Is this
right then? Yeah, right then at the door with the lockpick.
Right. So it's him becoming. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, but there's a previous scene to that where he's waiting in the car when Axel goes into the warehouse, right? That precedes it, because Axel is like captured briefly by that, and Billy goes in and actually breaks him loose, but they get the girl, and so then they circle back to this place. So that happens before. So Billy's already been activated at this point, and Billy is like, really a secret super cop, even though he's all buttoned up nerd,
All right,
get them Kansas boys. Get them Kansas boys. If they don't make the football team, get them in the police department. They'll help to kidnap women and to get these foreign drug smugglers. They'll get them. Yeah,
that is some pretty slick shit. There's not like any WASP Gentile criminals in this thing at all. It's like it's
brutes, right? Big old dudes, right? Brutes.
Eastern European, vaguely whatever foreign.
I mean, that's
that's wild.
Yeah, it's the Cold War. Like it's still the Cold War. So the bad Europeans gotta be, east of the Iron Curtain.
That's really it. That's that's actually a good point, and something that even for a series titled Imperial 80s, I somehow lost. That context is important. Again, that the Cold War, the Reagan you all mentioned earlier. And now we see Bogomil tracking everybody down and I was actually a little surprised at the technological capability where they were able to locate the cars, his police cars, to realize they're at Maitland's house. I don't know why I was like, they could do that in 84? I was like,
I mean, I'm sure they could. I'm sure they could, but even if they didn't, they want to give you the suggestion that Beverly Hills definitely will have the highest tech, but it's not using it.
That makes
correctly.
sense. Right.
It's that criticism.
Yeah. They needed Eddie to show them how to use their tech. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they probably would have had that technology too, because Orasami Burton's done work looking at this too, but like the post-Vietnam, because the internet really gets started, DARPANET and all that stuff really gets started in Vietnam. And when it afterwards, all those like military contractor, weird CIA cutout folks like start appearing and getting jobs for police departments to develop information systems and GPS and all this kind of stuff. And so, I'm sure they would have had like LoJack or something like that.
LoJack, I just saw Steven in the chat.
Yeah.
And then it is this scene where he's breaking in, picking the lock at Maitland's house, where Billy argues with Taggart and says, no, I gotta go with him now. He's like, I'm fully going native.
Right. And it's because it's always Taggart who's a little bit more shielded. Yeah. Right. Like he like it's this idea that like
when he goes back to get the shotgun, it's like a big turning point. When Taggart goes, he's showing you now I'm with you. Right. Yeah.
And then once they get in, they do like the kind of like Keystone Cop thing, like they can't climb the stuff, and they do the whole kind of jokes and try to add the jokes, and like Axel's like laughing at them, like, oh, look at them in their first big shootout, like these Beverly Hills guys,
and that's the funny shit, like, and people get actually killed. You don't necessarily see the blood, but there are actually people getting killed, but they do throw in these comedic, which I did, and I think after reading a little bit about the Stallone and all this other history, it was kind of messing with me watching this, because I was like, now I felt like watching it again that this is, now they're forcing the comedy in here with the Keystone Cop piece because it even felt it
doesn't work.
Like, nah, it
doesn't work to me.
And then Eddie stops to do his that kind of whatever that laugh I can't duplicate that he's doing in the middle, and it's interrupted because machine gun fire comes by.
right.
And he's like pop, and he's actually killing people, and I'm like, oh shit, wait a minute, why? Anyway,
yeah. Yeah, and sorry, go ahead, Jay.
I was just going to say, I think it's like the beginning of a formula that gets perfected over time. Like, I think, Lethal Weapon is also in those kind of stages where it's like they're trying to figure out, like, how do we balance the humor with the action, with the policing? Like, I think Bad Boys actually, in certain ways, like, kind of perfects that. Like, by the time you get to that level, is also a Bruckheimer production. But I think that I agree. It's clunky, and it probably is the result, maybe to some extent, of like different versions of the script moving from like a Stallone to a Eddie, which would be very, different in terms of how you would orient all of it and everything. Yeah.
Or like in 2, they find like, because Tony Scott does too, and that's a big Tony Scott thing, right? Like this kind of like levity with like really big explosions. So you see in 2, they do a juxtaposition with it that's a bit more polished. Right, how he takes out Brigitte Nielsen, and they have like the joke after it, right? The type of stuff, right? The shots making it clear this is a bit more clunky, right? They don't quite, to Jay's point, they don't quite know what to do, but they're kind of making it happen, right? So you have all that come and then he basically gets to shoot Jonathan Banks, kind of get the revenge on him. The kind of like maze of which is like such an 80s thing, like the maze of the big house, like it is 80s and 90s, and they're like their maze shootouts. Go ahead, Jab. You're muted.
The ultra cliche that dragged me out of whatever state of being I was in at that point of that scene was when Mike from Breaking Bad, they keep doing that thing of, I have the drop on you, but I have to first cock the shotgun. So it's like Eddie doesn't know what he's doing. All of a sudden, click, and it's like, oh, and it's like, wait a minute, why don't you just do that shit 5 seconds ago, and then you could shoot him? And it was like, I hate when they do that, but it was such a cliche as they run around the mansion, and
the enemies are always always more stupid. Even when Maitland shoots Eddie in the arm, like Maitland has a clear shot. Why he not getting him in the head?
Yeah. Or shoot him again. Like, why just exactly. Like, you can't pull the thing again. It's like pop. And then
it's so stupid,
keep going,
right?
Motherfucker, keep going.
Right. And then, you know, he has Jenny with the woman against the woman, don't, you know, the same thing, right? And she does the elbow. And then you get like, which I think is like super important, like Bogomil and Axel shoot Maitland, you know, together. And like, not just shoot him, like pummel him with bullets. Dude gets like whack, 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 whack. I'm like, damn, right? He gets it like they empty the clip on him.
And again, you set it up before. Remember, as you said, it's that long shot. Eddie is kneeled with Bogomil standing behind him, so you get that full. And then it really is. It was so obvious this time around. I would have never caught it years ago, but it is the legitimacy, the authority, the camaraderie. This is the only way a black man is allowed to do this. Even if he's a cop, you must have this authority behind you, literally standing behind you with all of the authority as you're kneeling. I was just like, this whole shot, it should be like a, I don't know. I feel like it should be studied for in classes for decades. It's like it's the perfect culmination for the whole thing. It was wild, and then they had to light him up.
It's intense. Like it's an intense, like with like the hallway sound, like, bah, 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 bah. I'm like, damn, right? But also, like, and then to add on to that, also it's like white folks. You know, if you see a black man who's willing to help y'all, let him do it. If he pledges your allegiance to y'all, right? He says y'all are good people. I'm giving you allegiance. Let him, and he will activate the most raw part of you that's being laid dormant.
And he won't sleep with your women. He won't bring other blacks with him. He won't. So he'll be all by himself. In fact, he won't have sex with anybody, just to make it. Just in case, just no.
He'll just go to a strip club and do this.
That scene is really, and I honestly, to be honest, I gotta be real with the two of you and everybody. That was where I felt I still have, if I didn't know already, I have toxic masculinity still coursing through my veins, because I was sitting there like, this is I'm not even proud of my reaction, but I was just like, why don't do that? Don't just sit there like that. I'm like, my 13-year-old self is like, you supposed to be the manhood. You can't just sit there shimmying like that, talking about everybody else's hard dick. And I'm like, I was like, come on. So I'm not proud of my reaction, but I'm just admitting that I did have it. And I was just like this, because even if my reaction is toxically manhoodish, and this is where I do feel like there is a Venn diagram overlap a little bit. There is still, I think, the intent to suppress or reshape the masculinity of black men in these contexts. So I don't necessarily have to agree that presenting queerness is sort of anti-man or whatever, or whatever. But I do think from their perspective that is part of it, and to have him just sitting there, just completely desexualizing and he's not there to enjoy the women, even though he's saying that's why he's there. He's not doing nothing. He's telling them to put the money in her panties, in her G-string. Like, he's not doing it. He's not doing anything. He's not getting lap dances and all this. He's telling them. So I was just like, that whole thing was, and then that ending scene is just so, not to get too Cress Welsing with it, but you have you had the white man with his phallic symbol standing over Eddie, giving the authority of the penis to Eddie and all that. I'm sorry. So I was just like, this is. Get at me in the comments. I'll come back and review all the criticism. But I'm like, I was really struggling with that.
I think I don't think that you're totally off, because I think that like the part of it again is all about like what is, and this is where it's interesting within terms of Eddie's participation choices, him being a producer on it and so on and so forth. I do think that there's a deliberate presentation of a certain kind of Black masculinity that is not at all threatening, which we've already talked about in a lot of different ways. Like, which is a very interesting dance that this film makes, because on one end, he's basically kind of the rogue cop, right? Who's willing to break the rules, willing to use violence when necessary, but never, does anything more than make a joke about the racism that goes on. It is asexual in these various ways, right? But then, like you're saying, is like kind of, he's trying to get the robot cops to be more sexual and to have a drink on the job and to do, to put money in the G-string of the woman and all these kind of things. So there is this role. I mean, this is like, we could go into like a very Afro-pessimist kind of space, but there is this kind of libidinal economy, I think, that could be read through a film like this that is very real.
Yeah, I mean, only thing I would add is like, this is also how they think about things, even if it's not explicitly, like they wouldn't do this analysis of themselves, but their attachment to things like guns and authority, it does kind of come from this perspective, right? It's part of their like reactive nature. And when you're thinking about like screenwriting, right? Even like the basis of screenwriting, of creating heroes' journeys, how you want to associate, they are definitely thinking in a way. If you ever, I watched the interview thing, like little featurette that they did like a 20 years later of the movie, and they do admit this film is very much about a person who comes from a different world activating people who are stuffy. So even from that perspective, what you're saying, reads and is supported. The other thing they also do admit is they say Eddie as a performer did that for them as well, which I think is the other kind of strange kind of psychological thing. Like Martin Brest, Ronnie Cox, Reinhold talk about how Eddie as a performer liberated them. So there's like this like multiple kind of way. They love being associated with this film, because this film also is like is an announcement to a certain kind of Americana that they all were very proud of, right? So remember, they're proud of this message. Like this is a message they all love being. Even Eddie has said this is probably his favorite movie that he's done. This is like his one. This is his one. Yeah, he definitely hits Beverly Hills Cop as like his film, right? One of them. Right. He doesn't say like, like one of the films for him that are like that, like stands like the tallest. Right. Probably it could be because it made $316 million. Like
that might help.
That might help. Right. And the fact that like, I mean, it was so big. I was talking to somebody. They said like in LA, it was everywhere. Like you would just see it like plastered everywhere. Like it was. And think about this. This is a black man in 1984. Right. He's now gone up to Michael Jackson levels. Like he is that dude, right? He's one of the biggest stars in all of Hollywood. And like the ending, I find really interesting because like he gets back to the hotel. Oh, first you get like the whole Bogomil, basically telling the lie, right? To
doing the whole Eddie routine, basically.
Routine. Like he does his whole thing.
He has learned.
That's right.
He's learned.
Which is so funny too. Like the idea that cops don't know how to fucking, create like falsified police reports, basically, of like, this is what happened.
Not until the rogue black man shows up.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the story
from Eddie. But like that. But again, like the role of that in this film is so nefarious, right? Because they catch a guy who's a fucking like kidnapper, cocaine dealer, stealing bonds, smuggling, like, he's just like a horrible
all the crime,
person, like everything.
But he's Victor Maitland. You know what I'm saying?
And the chief is really wants to protect him, right? Because, and this is one of the things, we haven't talked about this too much, but I do think that there is one of the interesting things is that Beverly Hills PD clearly understands its job to protect capital, right? We don't fuck with these rich people around here, right? Like, that's not what we are here to do, right? And so Eddie is going very much against that grain, which is also bullshit because they would know that in Detroit as well. right? But it's different in Beverly Hills, you know, and so I do think that's an important kind of element, like the Eddie being thrown out of Maitland's through that plate glass window in the end. They expect, like, of course they're gonna throw a black man breaking into Victor Maitland's office. Like, yeah, he gets thrown through a plate glass window, and yes, he's disturbing the peace.
Surprised it didn't happen sooner. Shit, like,
but this shit happens weekly.
Right, like, how did he get that far into the restaurant in the first place? Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
No, all good. But at the end, yeah, Bogomil he's learned how to do this false story for the chief, who the chief is really upset because he's like, you guys shot up Victor Maitland's place and killed a bunch of people? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you, you know?
And Taggart and Billy have learned to go with the lie, too. So they've all learned from Eddie's lesson. Like, they learned... Yeah. Well, shut up. Don't snitch now, motherfucker.
And he says, you were lying your ass off, right? And he gives it a little, like, stamp of approval, like, good job, boys. My job here is done. Which then, like, what happens at the end of the film when they go back and, like, you get what Baldwin called, like the lovemaking moment. It literally is the same sequence as in The Heat of the Night. Right at the end, when Poitier and Rod Steiger he goes off on the train, right, and they basically say, you know, this is great, you know, he calls it like a lovemaking scene, right? Like they do this kind of, they love each other, right? And you get it. Right, he goes to Billy. He gives Billy this big speech about how much he's great when he gives him the robes. Right, tries to give it to Taggart, but then admits that he stole a couple. Right, he's like,
because of course I already got mine. Yeah,
I got a couple in my bag. Right, you know, this and that, and it shows that Taggart still sticks to some of his morals. But then they go, guys want to go get a drink, right? And then Billy's, no, we got to still work. But Taggart's like, what's one drink? So he's now opened him up a little bit, right? And, you know, he's now job accomplished. And then you get the final shot. He's like, you know, I know this great place on the other side of town, you know, trust me, you know? And then you get the Eddie shot, and then this goes away. And you're just like, when I was finishing it this time, I was like, this movie, man, like, because as an actor, when I used to try to use this film as an example, realizing what I was developing as a mentality as a Black actor, that my job was actually to find ways to make Hollywood feel comfortable with themselves and their project. So me going there co-signing and also saying, I'm going to find a way to make y'all better, which is really what ultimately the Issa Raes and these fuckers, they're basically Eddie in this movie. Anyone who's serving Hollywood in this way is fucking Eddie in this movie. Like, it is Hollywood. He is doing, that's the job they want you to do. You know, Oscar so white, all that type of shit. It's there to basically make you into an Axel Foley to say, hey, look, this is what y'all doing wrong. Let's just kind of loosen up a bit, loosen these little parts and everything, and then we'll have it. Follow me. Trust me.
So like, really, you know? Soot Jali, I should reach out to him and invite him to update, because he needs to backdate his argument. It seems like, if anything,
has he done anything on Eddie? Has he done anything on Eddie, Soot Jali?
I'm not aware of it. I'm not aware if he has. But but his great work around the Cosby Effect. So when did the Cosby Show start?
Same year, September of that year. This came out in December. Cosby Show came out in September. So I think they're running. I mean, look, think about this. We don't even have to look at the data. Think about it qualitatively, of the Cosby Show and Beverly Hills Cop in the same fucking year.
Wow.
The narrative warfare that exists there. Come on.
Again, salute to my generation, man. We had and all those around our ages, because that is a and again, just to bookend that point that I was making at the beginning around, I hope people who are a bit younger can appreciate what you just said there, that when the Cosby Show drops, when Beverly Hills Cop drops, it's dropping into, you know, where they're everything. In other words, like, there's nothing else. You can't escape it. There's no there are not 7,000 other channels and platforms and YouTube channels to go and watch. Everyone was going to be confronted with this in one way or another, whether you liked it or not. So for them to, and they're creating the effect on both television and film of saying, this is the version of blackness. There has to be a certain level of quote unquote authenticity, but it has to appease a very white middle-class sensibility, affluent sensibility. And then, yeah, look at Robin in the chat. Jordan is a rookie that year too. Fuck.
Which Michael album is out that year? Let me go look.
Thriller, right?
Oh, no. Is that Thriller? Don't tell me it's Thriller. Don't tell me it's Thriller.
Thriller's 83, right? So like
I think so. We've already been laid the
still applies. Still applies.
Still there,
albums lasted for 2 years back there.
And Thriller, exactly. Thriller is not a once off. Yeah, Thriller is a decades long. I mean, oh no. Oh my God. We are Purple Rain in 84. Oh my God.
It's 82, but yeah, it's still Purple Rain's 84.
We had no hope. Yeah. We had no hope. We have against all odds, to point to another 80s reference. We've made it. Oh my God. Seriously though, that's all jokes aside. That's a counterinsurgent barrage. Golly.
I was trying to think,
you all.
How did more kids not end up named Axel? Like you had Axel in this, and then you had Axl Rose like coming up at the same.
That's a good
same
point.
Era, and like, why wasn't there a generation of like if that happened nowadays, there'd be. So many
they got
kids
Corona and COVID. They got babies Corona and COVID. So I mean, like, that's a good question. Why aren't they? Funny you said that. One of my youngest daughters, I don't know, I got to find out where she would have gotten this from, because one of my youngest daughter's friends took the name Axel when they wanted to change their self-reference. They took the name Axel, and I'm wondering if that was a trickle down. Where did they get that? Because I was thinking, where would they have gotten that from in the 21st century? Where would that have come from?
I don't know. And just I'll pull up a few things from the chat. Is there anything else y'all wanted to cover from the movie? No, thank you.
No,
this has been great, guys.
Yeah.
Just to better congratulate ourselves, I just want to say it one more time. We made it, and we deserve more praise and credit for that, because
it's wild.
That is wild.
Yeah. Yeah, we brought the thank you for all the super chats, Kevin. But we did end up talking about this, and then interesting.
I've read about this. I've never seen it. You can watch it on here. So it's on YouTube. All right, I'm gonna go look, because I've heard about this sequence. I've read about it.
Wow.
So what would that have done?
I don't know. There's some interesting stuff. Like, so one of the things I thought was funny, right, was he goes into Beverly Hills, right, and he spends all that money. Like, so this is an interesting thing, but right, because it's like, what does he have the money? I mean, I know that eventually the tab gets picked up, right? So that's an important thing, is that the Beverly Hills Police Department at the end of it picks up his full hotel tab,
which is
and including the
copaganda bullshit,
additional robes for sure, but also like. You have to think about what's on this tab. I mean, he's ordering room service constantly. It's like kind of like Home Alone. It's like Kevin,
That's right. Yeah.
He's like, because he orders the room service for them when he puts the bananas in the tailpipe. He orders another set of donuts and coffee for the second round of guys, and I think there's even maybe a scene where he orders room service when he's with, I don't remember, but there's at least 2 scenes where he does that. Maybe a third.
We would have to assume he ate at some point. So
it's just like like where on his little Detroit. I mean, I'm not saying cops don't make, but in the 80s, cop salaries were not also what it is today.
All they showed us is that he had the bullshit, the shitty car, and then his outfit basically doesn't change. So he's in that gray sweat top and jeans. So maybe that's how they're trying to compensate for the.
So one of the weird things is when you start looking for like I had mentioned that I had looked up on AI like some synopses of these and they were all wrong. But one of the synopses said that he had some of the bonds that like, and so I was actually really curious if this was a prior version of the script or if it's like a holdover. And so like the idea was that when Mikey came, because remember Mikey had those German bearer bonds or whatever they're called, right? And that in the version that gets shown in the film, they kill him and take the bonds, right? They take them back, but in there seems to be perhaps there's another version of it where he actually Mikey gives him the bonds, or that he hides them in his apartment basically somewhere, and so then he has this money, right? But nobody knows that he has this money. But anyways, it's weird because that was one of the things that I was trying to kind of reconcile in the rewatch is like, how is he assuming that he's going to pay for all of this?
Maybe he wasn't.
He'll find another way. It'll be like, oh, I see what's happening here. You're overcharging a black man who never even stayed at your place. You know,
like, a black man can't eat for free in Beverly Hills. What kind of racism is this?
All black people look the same. You know, like it's
right. So ridiculous. It wasn't me. It was another black man. You think we all look the same? That's racist.
Oh yeah. My God. No, go ahead.
Also, yeah, Axel Cobretti was Sly's name that he wanted.
Could you be more petty than fucking Sly Stallone? Come on, dog. You are a petty little. I can't stand Sylvester Stallone.
One other thing we should mention too, because it does connect. I mean, I don't want to get too much into Eddie's whole personal life and all this stuff, but this was a part of the reason for his basic disappearance from public life for a period, was that there were these stories in the mid 90s about him and a trans woman sex worker, Shalimar Siuli, I think is her name. And yeah, there was like all this stuff about whether he had her killed or whether a studio had her killed or like what was the whole, thing there. But and with that, there were a lot of questions in the 90s that came up about what was Eddie's actual sexuality as well, right? And I know that like, I'm not, we can't litigate all of that here, but it is important because it is like a set of real stories that were reported and were big deal in the 90s that were in the news and everything like that do kind of hang over his legacy.
Yeah, and it's also a part of a larger 80s black famous club. I mean, if you think about Magic Johnson, Whitney Houston, there is, like my mother, like I said, she kind of came up in that era, the clubs out here in New York, out in LA, all that stuff. And there's like, someone will probably write a very big book about it at some point. They'll do their, their version of it. But like, it also was part of a very big stories. I'm not saying they weren't true, but like it became these things that everyone just talked about constantly. Yep. And so for multiple reasons, you saw people like retreat, change their kind of personality. I mean, look, Magic Johnson went on a huge quest to make himself seem very different. Once, the HIV diagnosis came out, and then all the rumor mills and who he was hanging out with. You even see Isaiah Thomas do a bit of a switch of his existence as well. Like, it's really big. And like, it'd be good to see someone do a real study of that, thinking about entertainment industry, capital, image, this quest for kind of, black
because Teddy Pendergrass's name was mentioned too. He had a similar story attached to him as well. And yeah.
No, I agree. Yeah, and I think it's also there's a way that you do question, like, is this stuff used to like discipline certain people? Like, is there a certain amount of, like salacious propaganda that's created to, are they being, I mean, there's a lot of open questions with all kinds of it.
Yeah, I think all of it. I think they're all sleeping with everybody, and that's being used to against them. That was, But I did, I remember hearing the Eddie stuff, and I admit I just assume the stories are true in terms of who they're sleeping with, and then why people would want to suppress the story. I don't know about the killing and all of that part, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, the car accident with Teddy Pendergrass. And my conspiracy is always, because we don't hear another. What happened to the male vocalists that sound like Teddy? Those careers don't seem to exist anymore. No, I don't hear any baritones and bass in voice anymore. And that was as close to the toxic manhood masculinity thing I used to get to, but that was,
his father was a transit cop.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And Eddie comes from a particular kind of like middle class experience here in New York as well, which I think is really important when thinking about his trajectory, his values. A lot of Eddie's more of like his distances were never, even if we find out that like it was not criminal, I wouldn't say his distances were based on a sort of principle. It was more, it would be on like a kind of like privileged or paranoia, and you can like connect it to. But also very possible it was because of like true nefarious activity that he knew he had the ability to get out of because of his relationship to capital, right? But he does come from a particular kind of space that's very Black in New York too, which I have to say, the classism and the kind of class creation of people within New York City society, where you are in certain parts, it does instill a particular kind of orientation that, maybe in your personal life, you'll kind of do different things like drugs and go out and hang out, but you're always going to want to adhere to a certain kind of orientation, even if you may know better. But it's very much part of a certain kind of like class-based way of thinking, especially as you're given the ability to kind of rise up in society.
Yeah, and I don't know within this, I don't know how much of it is like propaganda and image curation and so on, but the image of Eddie, even in the 80s, right? And we talked about this, I think, when we talked about Trading Places or whatever, right? Was that actually he was fairly clean cut as a person in terms of he didn't party a whole lot. He would go out to parties, but he would like kind of sit in the corner and not, a lot of this sounds like very apocryphal, but it is the kind of thing where you have multiple people who were around him in that time who all kind of narrate a similar sort of Eddie of like, yeah, he wasn't doing cocaine, everybody else was, kind of thing. And then
that's what his brother said.
Right, Charlie, yeah. Right, like Charlie, yeah, which I love, rest in peace. He's dead, right? He passed, right?
Yeah, he passed, unfortunately. Yeah. Charlie was,
he was hilarious. Oh my God.
He was absolutely hilarious. Yeah.
When I found out he was the one who yelled out, was it in Raw or Delirious where he yells out and he said, and Eddie says, I'm a villain. What is that? The people who could throw their voice. Ventriloquist. Y'all didn't know I'm a ventriloquist because his brother yelled out at somebody. He told him to shut the fuck up, I think is what it was. A heckler or whatever.
Oh, I didn't remember that. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. It's funny. All right. Yeah. Rest in peace to Charlie for sure. He was hilarious. He was fucking hilarious.
Oh my God. Beverly Hills was being high tech. I guess that working class image Mtume was talking about still applies at least partially to Rosewood and Taggart. Taggart mentioned their pay being docked. Yeah, I mean, I do think
that line. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
and I think that's in part to show again this like mythology of the Beverly Hills Police Department being like so buttoned up and procedure oriented, and all of that. But I do think there is definitely. You're not supposed to see them as like from the same kind of class strata as the people who live in Beverly Hills, basically.
Chidimaka said Charlie's. Yeah.
Go ahead.
She said Charlie's funnier than Eddie, and the only reason I hesitated on that is because we never saw. I haven't seen Charlie do a full stand up. And I haven't seen him, he didn't get opportunities to shine in movies, but his interviews whether with
storytelling,
Chappelle Show or elsewhere, or even just podcast stuff, phenomenally hilarious. So
at the very least, he's insanely underrated. He does not because he does not have a legend. He doesn't. I can't. You can't say that Charlie Murphy is like regarded. He's not being brought up in conversations, right? I'm gonna say similar to Chris Penn with Sean Penn. I think Chris Penn is as good an actor as his brother.
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, hell yeah! Watch The Funeral. Like Chris Penn could act his ass off, right? He was as good as his brother, right? Maybe even better. But we can talk about that. We can debate that. But yeah, he doesn't have a legend. I'll say that like. He deserves a legend, and he doesn't have it, except for like those sequences on Chappelle's Show.
And then Dwayne Monroe. We're going to have Dwayne on Friday, by the way, folks. I need to put that up. But turning racist violence into a punchline has a long history in U.S. films. A black character to appear real encounters or notes racism, but as you say, it resolves in a swirl of cotton candy. All right, folks.
Said.
Yeah, which is what Dwayne's voice sounds like when you listen to him. A swirl of cotton candy.
Oh, man.
All right. Thank you so much for this, Jared. This was great.
Nah, man, thank you both.
Now you're coming back on before your Mondays get taken again.
I'm not bullshitting. Anything else, I'm not doing nothing else but biding time until my next invitation here. Everything else is just some in-between filler shit. It's just second. It's just filler. Just something to do to keep myself busy. Because seriously, salute to you all. The series is fucking great, and I've seen at least 90% of them. I'll catch up to the rest at some point, but they're all great. So I appreciate the invitation. Anytime.
Thank you.
That's a lot of watching hours. So thank you for that.
I know
it's a lot. It's a lot, but they're great. And this is, and I admit this is my, it's my little life.
Yeah.
I grew up watching all of this shit, man. Like way more closely and more often than I should have been. So this is dope. So thanks a lot, and salute to the undefeated audience and chat, of course. As well.
You got anything coming up that you want to plug, Jared, while you're here?
No, just check out. Just I'm around. Just come through whenever everybody has a chance. So when your media diet empties out a little bit, come through. And but we do, please do support Black Liberation Media, support Saturdays with Renee, and Earn Your Liberation is back, having a lot of fun with that as well. So support all of that, and thanks again to the both of you. This has been very, very dope.
Yeah, thank you, man. We will be back next week. We have to figure out. I was texting. I was texting Orasami Burton during this to see when he's going to do Action Jackson with us, because I know.
How do you like your ribs?
That's oh my god! There's so many. Are you all doing Soul Man? I see somebody asking about that. Are you doing?
We gotta do that soon.
Yeah,
do this real soon.
Yeah,
that one I'm not ready for. I'm not ready for that one.
No, I'm saying, how do we survive, man? This is what I'm saying. That any of us have any consciousness about us at all is a fucking miracle.
I don't know how I'm gonna survive that one. That's gonna be rough. That's gonna be rough.
I can't wait to see it.
I talked to my mom about that one. She let me watch it. Like she would watch it unironically.
Hey, would your mother ever be interviewed? Would you ever do that? Because I'm thinking of, because Brokish, they brought their mothers into their show, and I thought that shit was kind of funny. It was
she wouldn't do live. I'd have to do it like privately with her and get her pre-recorded. But yeah.
And I saw somebody else's chance. Some kid he watches stupid stuff with his grandmother, and I have to admit that's kind of it's kind of funny to see his grandmother watching, like, I don't know, some brand new stupid stuff. I would do that if rest in peace to all my grandmothers. If they were around, I'd grab one and be like, let's do this. This be funny as shit.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, man. Salute to you both. Thanks again.
Peace.
Thank you, man. Peace.